individual.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Thank you, everybody, for catching our second public meeting today at 4 p.m. on January 17th for a regular City Council meeting. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we're meeting today is on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. And again, we thank them very much for that. I do want to just make a brief announcement on behalf of council and just really show our extreme thanks and appreciation and gratitude to our city staff and contractors involved in the snow and ice control over the past few weeks. They included much of the holiday season, including Christmas Day, away from their families so they could focus on clearing our streets and the priority sidewalks and help keep the rest of us as safe as possible. They faced many challenges, including multiple significant snowfall events, extreme cold weather for an extended period of time, followed by a rapid snow melt over the past week, and subsequently the flood control. They did this with a fleet of snow removal equipment that's designed for typical mild West Coast winters, and for that we are extremely grateful. These extreme temperature fluctuations are now resulting in potholes, which public crews are proactively repairing as they come across them on a priority basis. But any member of the public wishing to report a pothole can do so by visiting courtney.ca/service, and that'll go right direct to the folks that can sort that out. So don't keep it a secret. If you know of something that needs to be dealt with, let us know as soon as possible. Overall, community has been very fortunate compared to many others in BC during this past fall and winter. It's been a challenging time for many of our neighbors, particularly in the lower mainland, but even down in Cowichan, they had some significant flooding as well. To our friends, families, and communities affected by these ongoing storms, we send our thoughts for a quick recovery. For our own community members, thank you for your patience and understanding as we crews continue to repair the cleanup from this winter weather. I've heard many expressions of gratitude from the public, and it's great to see how the community support for these hardworking, dedicated crews were sent out. So really appreciate everybody pitching in. And with that, we'll move into the adoption of minutes. Excellent. So the minutes from December 6th and December 8th are moved. Are there any errors or omissions on these? Councillor Hillian.
Well, just a point of order, Mayor. The December 8th is actually the public hearing. I'm suggesting we receive those separately.
Oh, fair enough. Thank you, Councillor Hillian. So we'll just receive the December 6th regular council meetings. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And secondarily, the public hearing report. Okay, that's been moved in second. And Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I wonder, since this is a new procedure of including these in minutes, I wonder if it would be appropriate for staff to just comment on that process.
Mr. Garbutt, our CAO.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council. Previously, we'd received those minutes separate from the council agenda. It's common practice to receive them on council agenda, particularly when you're considering third reading on that agenda. We're going to examine in the future whether we're going to consolidate that into a third reading report. But Mr. Marshall is going to have some deliberation with his staff, and we'll brief council when we come along that way.
Excellent. And I believe one of the outcomes of this is that if people are looking for the document, it just makes it that much simpler for them to be able to see these public hearing comments. So really want to appreciate staff for identifying that gap and helping us move towards a more transparent and effective way of basically recording these public hearings. So thanks for that. That being said, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Any late items? I didn't see any earlier on, so we're good there. And moving into delegations. Sounds good. All right, we're going to move into delegations, and that's going to be Eric Erickson. So if you'd like to step up to the plate, as they say. See, I know how you think. So, but thank you very much, Mr. Erickson, for coming, and you're representing the BC Baseball Umpires Association. And with that, I will cede the floor.
Hello, everybody. Reason I'm here is I attended by Zoom the annual general meeting of the BC Baseball Umpires Association in December. A major topic of discussion was the reduction in our membership. One of the reasons is the COVID restrictions meant there were not a lot of games those last couple of years, and experienced umpires who didn't have games have left and not returned. The other problem is a long-standing one regarding bringing in younger umpires. A lot of umpires quit after a short time because of harassment from spectators. Now, every workplace in BC is required to have a harassment policy. Offices open to the public, like government, dental, and medical offices, all have signs posted about harassment and intimidation of staff. So at this meeting, I raised the idea of getting such signage at sports facilities, and the idea went over very well. Then I asked if it would be possible, in their opinion, if we could get municipalities to enact a bylaw. This was also considered a good idea, and I was tasked with the project, so that's why I'm here. And I've consulted with the local umpire-in-chief. He personally supports this idea. So that's why I'm here, to ask if you would consider amending the parks control bylaw by adding harassment as a prohibited activity in Courtney Parks, and to install signage at every park where sports activities take place. This actually would be groundbreaking. If it happens here, it would be an example for other municipalities. We think it would be very helpful in retaining the young umpires that we need to grow our membership. Also, I think it would be a signal to our young umpires that they are valued by the community. So the ask is to amend the park control bylaw and to put anti-harassment signage in the parks.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that, Eric. I appreciate it. And as you know, when we do have a presentation from a delegation, we don't decide that day on things. But with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Theos.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Eric, for bringing this forward. I know we had this discussion at the Parks Committee not long ago, and I did bring it up to council in regards that this was an issue that you had brought up. And I'm very glad that you were able to bring it forward here in a way that actually offers solutions. And certainly, you know, when we talk about code of conduct, we would be expecting the fans to be treating the critical component of the umpires in a way that enhances the end result and enhances the experience for everybody. So thanks so much, Eric, for bringing this forward. Much appreciated.
All right, and Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Eric. I appreciate you bringing this forward as well. I wonder, I haven't looked at the parks bylaw, you know, in respect to this. Have you? Is there something in there already that speaks to it, or is it more vague than?
One of the things is you're not allowed to throw anything at anybody in the park.
Yeah, good rule. Okay.
This will be in addition.
Okay.
Unless it's part of the game, like a ball.
like rocks and sticks.
Fair enough. Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Frisch and Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Eric, for the presentation. This certainly isn't a new problem. I know my wife can recount tales of being a soccer referee when she was in her early teens and suffering significant abuse at the hands of adult spectators. But what I'm wondering about is, do we not have most of these organizations that have their own procedures for policing behavioral issues and dealing with those in some fashion within the context of those organizations, whether it be you know, baseball or soccer or hockey, the various sports?
Yes, I think they do.
Yeah. So what you're not suggesting that the city, through posting of signs and incorporating something like this in a bylaw, would actually be involved in enforcement necessarily. It's more to promote education and awareness.
And to show that the city is very concerned about this issue and is willing to be supportive. And it would be the same way of enforcing the current bylaw, is that it would be citizen complaints. You wouldn't
Right.
expect to have a monitor at the games or anything like that.
Thanks for that. Well, I'd certainly support our recreation staff looking into this and seeing if it was feasible. But as the mayor indicates, we could deal with that at a subsequent meeting.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And Councillor Morin.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for bringing this up. I've worked with youth for a long time, and sometimes we have youth leaders not in a referee situation, or sorry, an umpire situation, but I find that young people do get harassed when they're in those positions of sort of authority. And so I think it's a really valid point. I'm just wondering if, looking forward, we have been sort of discussing, not formally, but just in terms of harassment and kind of code of conduct in our cities, in our public spaces in general. And I don't want to water down this request, but I think that we've had instances of racial slurs in parks and people, playing sports or doing an activity, getting harassed. I'm just thinking it might be good to look at as a larger conversation in terms of conduct throughout the community on a variety of topics. But I do hear the point that this is more around youth umpires, but yeah, I just think it's a really valid thing to bring up, and it's not restricted to only young umpires. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Morin. And yeah, to that point, I mean, it is something where in many places, including the sports center, there are signs posted that speak to not being abusive or threatening, those kinds of things. And so this seems like a potentially a logical extension of that, and maybe not specifically for the umpires, as I think Councillor Morin was saying, but like, this is how we expect everybody to treat everybody, kind of that professional, respectful kind of thing. So yeah, with that, I do want to thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. And we expect that this will come back to council at a future meeting, just with potentially a motion for a report to let us know what's possible. And maybe just as a final comment, from yourself on whether or not you're also presenting to the regional district, the town of Comox, village of Cumberland, those kinds of things.
I will do that once if we're successful here. We'll
So everything hinges on Courtney.
That's my talent. Show the
All right.
leadership.
Awesome. I appreciate that very much, Eric, and you have yourself a fantastic day.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and I'm going to pass it over to our CAO, Jeff Garbett, for introductions.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have two new staff members joining us today. We have a new Director of Development Services, Mr. Chris Marshall, and he's just started this past week. Joins us from the cottage country in Ontario, and just wanted to welcome him to council. He's got a long history of development planning, and spent some time out in Ontario, as well as some time on the coast here as well. So he's going to be a great addition to our staff network. Yeah, we also have Mr. Craig Rushton, who is our interim Director of Recreation, Culture and Community Services, while Ms. Saunders is away. And so Craig joins us. He was most recently with Vancouver Island Health Authority, but he had a similar position to this with the city of Hamilton. And so we're very well served by our new members. And just wanted to take that opportunity for council to be aware. We'll have lots of interaction with them. at the director level. We also have joining us our manager of legislative services, Ms. Adriana Proton, and she joins us most recently from Langford, although she has worked in the Comox Valley here with Cumberland as well. So we have a few new faces around the table today, and we're very, very happy that they've joined us. They bring a very high level of skill, and we're looking forward to them serving the citizens of Courtenay. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garvin. Appreciate that. And again, a warm welcome from not just council, but from our entire community if you've just moved here. So much appreciated. With that, we're going to move into financial services, and we have a revised terms of reference for the Tourism Advisory Committee. Excellent. And I'll pass it over to staff.
Thank you, Your Worship. Renata Waket's on line to do a short introduction, as well as our colleagues from Tourism Vancouver Island.
Thank you. Through the CEO to Mayor and Council. So in September of 2021, City of Courtenay entered into agreement with Tourism Vancouver Island to provide management, delivery, and reporting on the municipal and regional district tax funds, known as the MRDT, on behalf of the city. And as part of this agreement, Tourism Vancouver Island will develop, implement, and coordinate the Tourism Advisory Committee, known as TAC, and engage with industry and stakeholders in developing the terms of reference for the TAC. This industry and stakeholder engagement took place in late November of 2021. And today, Callum Matthews and Karen Bannister from Tourism Vancouver Island are here to present the outcome of the stakeholder and industry engagement, to answer any questions regarding the revised terms of reference for the Tourism Advisory Committee, and to provide a progress update. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. My name is Karen Bannister. I'm with Tourism Vancouver Island. I'm coming to you today from the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Thank you, Renata, for the introduction, and to you, Jeff, as well. We're delighted to continue to work with all of you in the Comox Valley in advancing tourism, both through the visitor servicing contract that we have with the Comox Valley Regional District and the marketing contract we have there as well on some funding that comes from the province, but also on the municipal regional district tax. So maybe what I'll start with, is if it's okay with you, Renata, is just a bit of an update on some activities that we've done in the marketing sphere over the last couple of months, as it kind of segues into the engagement we've done with tourism businesses. I do have some visuals that I can share with you if you'd like me to share my screen. I've also provided them to you in advance for more of a detailed progress report. So Renata, would you like me to share my screen to show the visuals?
Sure, Karen, please, and thank you.
Okay. So I have provided you with a little bit of a budget update, which you can go into in more depth at your leisure. I've shown you that for this calendar year of 2021, the MRDT has been applied in the following ways with the different marketing expenses. Because the MRDT doesn't represent the entire tourism marketing budget, I've shown you the full total budget on the other side with the leveraging percentages that sort of demonstrate that at this time, the MRDT, or in this last calendar year, represented 9% of the total funding. That's only because we sort of started in this agreement in September. We didn't apply MRDT much previous to that. Our agreement, with the CVED's Comox Valley Economic Development didn't include MRDT. We've necessarily had to apply some backwards, but that's why you're seeing 40,000. So if you have any questions on numbers, I'd be happy to go through them more in detail. But it's a solid financial position and one that's sort of seen across the province right now, with as many closures and flooding and all of the other kinds of things that we're dealing with in the travel industry. We haven't been able to be as active in tourism marketing as we would have been in years past. And so that means that there's more dollars that we're hoping to bring forward into the years that we'll need to do so for recovery.
All right, and I don't see any questions, so yeah, you can continue on if you'd like.
Thank you. So if hopefully now you can just see some more visuals instead of numbers. Beautiful image of a mountain biker. Of course, Comox Valley is wonderful mountain biking trails. It's one of the assets. So we did do a stakeholder engagement session that we called an industry workshop in late November that was attended by 26 tourism industry individuals. It was a wonderful opportunity to, in person, which was also great, to lead people in the industry through some of the work that we've done so far, some of who we are as Tourism Vancouver Island and what we believe in, and some of what our hope is for the future of destination management in the Comox Valley. So we had excellent feedback from that presentation, and we'd like to continue to do more and more of those. We are continuing to build up an image database of images that we can use in tourism marketing. Our focus as an organization and an industry is on diversity and inclusion in images. And of course, we want to align with the Supernatural BC brand, which has an exceptional amount of equity built up in the industry. We're starting from scratch in building a consumer email list. And so one of the great ways of doing that is through incentivizing with contests. And so we are working our way through building a solid foundation of consumer email marketing as a way of reaching people for relatively little cost. We continue to work on the branding aspects of Comox Valley tourism. I just want to point out that one change you'll see is that instead of Discover Comox Valley, which was what Comox Valley Economic Development called this initiative previously, we have switched to Experience Comox Valley. The reason is that we always try in all of our work to apply a reconciliation lens, and our previous engagement with Indigenous individuals across the province tells us that the word discover holds that colonial interpretation, and so we want to stick away from colonial language. This is a work in progress. I just want to show it to you to give you a taste of what the evolving brand looks like. We are working with Comox First Nation currently to work on the iconography around the totem to respectfully reflect Comox First Nation. Anyone who is interested, we could talk about metrics, but basically we've got ads in market for future travel and as much as we can for current travel. And we continue to sort of track those and hopefully improve over time. Visitor servicing, while not in the MRDT contract with the City of Courtenay, is still an important part of tourism management and one that we hold with the Comox Valley Regional District. So we continue to have static visitor servicing at the location on Small Road, but this summer we also introduced mobile visitor servicing all around the valley, including in key locations in the City of Courtenay. We're currently working on a partnership with WestJet, which will position Comox Valley on their digital advertising channels, also to promote the connection with the Comox Valley Airport. The Black Press paper is working on another Discover guide, and we are actively engaged with helping them around the content and connecting it to our brand. And we're working quite substantially on a website build just to reflect this new direction. And I will stop sharing and allow my colleague Callum to update you on the Tourism Advisory Committee.
Great, thank you, Karen. As I believe everyone is aware, our team at Tourism Vancouver Island was tasked with supporting the development of a new Tourism Advisory Committee for ultimately overseeing and providing input and guidance into the use of MRDT as well as other tourism related funding sources, and to provide input and guidance into tourism marketing, visitor services, and other tourism-related activities. Based on our work in other parts of the region and a review of kind of best practice around the province, we believe that the best approach is to have an advisory committee that's comprised primarily of private sector businesses looking for owner operators and senior managers to make up the membership of the advisory committee, and to pair that advisory committee with other forms of engagement with other community organizations and groups that are important tourism contributors. I believe that you've all received a copy of the kind of final draft terms of reference that sets out kind of the terms of membership for the advisory committee, the membership matrix, and along with that, also our plan for launching the advisory committee as effectively and quickly as we can, while also ensuring a reasonable opportunity for folks to nominate themselves for membership. If there's any questions about the process that we undertook in order to get to this point, or questions about the terms of reference itself or our next steps, would be really happy to answer them. But I'm hoping that the documents provided set that out in a fairly straightforward way for you all. So I think I'll leave it there.
I'm turning my mic off. I'll turn it back on. Excellent. We do have a couple of questions or comments, so I'll pass it over to Councillor Frisch.
Oh yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Callum. I did have a question about the appointments, and sorry, I can't find it right now, but could you just clarify for me that that would be your organization that would appoint the members of the committee? Oh, he's muted.
Oh, Caitlin, mute, yeah.
Sorry about that. The process that we've proposed would have a committee to review the nominations that we were feeling would include a member of our board at Tourism Vancouver Island, which would be kind of a bit more impartial and removed from the process, and they would be from the Tourism Vancouver Island board. But we're also very open to having potentially a representative from council, or a staff person, whether it's from the city of Courtenay or from the regional district. We're certainly very open to that.
Okay, well, I hadn't contemplated that, but a bit of local knowledge might be helpful. But yeah, I don't know if staff want to weigh in later as to whether there's room for them to be a part of that. I know there was some talk of keeping it as non-political as possible, and I agree with that to some extent. I had another question about a comment in here about, I guess it was forwarding motions to council in the regional district, and I assume that would be motions that we would then have to act on. Is that what that's referring to?
Yeah, I think that was our understanding of how that was written, but I'm not exactly sure of what a example of that sort of situation might be off the top of mind, however.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. And was there an opportunity to ask Karen a question or two, or is this maybe wait till after? Is this okay? I just well, first of all, I wanted to thank her for the recap. It was extremely clear, and I really enjoyed and understood it. So that's exceptional. And I wanted to ask a quick question about the dine around, which is coming up quickly, and maybe you guys just aren't able to act on that one, but it's a pretty big deal. And I don't know if that plays into some of the advertising you're going to do.
We're happy to support through our channels and through any way that we can bring a kind of visitation lens to those kinds of activities. However, my understanding is that Dine Around is community-based primarily, and it's being led or organized by another group.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I had that thought, although there was this philosophy that if people here actually want to do something, it's more likely people from somewhere else want to do it too. So anyways.
Yeah, An example of that from another community that we're working in currently is to promote sip and stay, or sorry, like sort of dine and stay packages to complement those efforts. So if Dine Around, as far as I understand, is the BC Restaurant Foundation that's organizing it in the Comox Valley, is going forward, then we can support with things like promoting your hotel stay and pushing that message out to people outside of the community.
Wonderful. Well, thanks very much.
Mhm.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Frisch and Councillor Moore.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Thanks so much for the presentation. I love the idea of the advisory committee. I'm wondering, in terms of sort of evaluation or feedback from members, would something like that come through the advisory committee? And just in terms of the stakeholders and how they feel, what kind of results they're getting, and whether there's going to be some kind of stream for getting feedback from folks, rather than just the folks on the advisory committee, or if there's a way to involve them with that. Thanks.
Yeah, I think if that was directed towards me, we would certainly see the advisory committee as that kind of main body that would provide recommendations to us in the work that we're doing and ensure that the marketing and other initiatives underway are meeting the needs of businesses. I also think that, as I mentioned before, we really value opportunities to seek input and create opportunities to collaborate with other organizations that may not fit into the that matrix, and ensuring that advisory committee is at a size that is representative but also functional. So we would find other ways absolutely of engaging with a broader set of stakeholders in a less formal advisory committee sort of capacity. And I think the stakeholder event that we had prior to the Christmas holidays is a really great example of just one way that we can work with and engage a broader group of stakeholders.
That's great.
Karen, I don't know
Thank
if you have anything else you wanted to add to that.
Sure. Yeah, we see the advisory committee as sort of being that function of representation where people are sort of nominating themselves and coming forward. But those that maybe don't want to go that far or don't fit into that matrix, we want to engage with nonetheless, of course. We also are regularly engaged with the chambers and BIAs through a twice monthly call where everybody can share the activities that they're working on and find points of collaboration. So that's one example of an organization or a set of people who might not fit into the advisory, but nonetheless, there is an opportunity on an ongoing basis to continue to be connected.
That's great. I really like the idea of having the opportunity to not be two arms length, to kind of have to be on the pulse, as you will. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Morin and Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Great, thank you, Mayor, and thank you both for the reports. I had a question for you, Karen, about the marketing report. One of the things that I was noticing was it's mentioned that there were 1,600 visits to the visitor center between October and December of 2021, and that was double the number from 2020. I was just curious, what are those numbers like compared to previous years, and what are they like? It's hard for me to know in isolation what that means. And what are they like compared to other visitor centers in comparable sized communities on the island?
Sure. I don't have exacts. I can always pull exact information though and provide it to you if you want a year-over-year comparison. I think we did see an increase between the October and December, a little bit busier than we anticipated. I know that anecdotally, some of the people that were coming into the visitor center in that time period were accessing the shop aspect of it. And some of those people are local and they were looking for the items that are for sale on consignment. But a year-over-year comparison could be created that would give you that sort of more historical information. This visitor center is relatively busy compared to some of the other communities on Vancouver Island. It is highly visible in terms of a throughway just off the highway there. And so in that way, it does service a lot of individuals who are coming off the highway and trying to look for what to do into Courtenay and Cumberland and the Comox Valley. But I can't have actuals unless I dig into it for you.
Sure, I quite understand. If that might actually be helpful, just have a bit of a follow-up on how these figures relate to previous years of this same center. Great, thanks, Karen. Appreciate that.
Excellent. And Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. I'll echo Councillor Frisch's appreciation for the clarity of the reports. I also wanted to ask if you have a budget for tourist promotion. I believe there are contractors out there that are wanting to do video promotions highlighting the island and the tourism, particularly given the beating that we've taken from the pandemic and the desire to bolster the businesses that are impacted. Do you actually have a budget for that that other organizations could apply to get funding from?
We don't currently have something specifically worked in for video for other organizations to tap into. But two thoughts. We do have video assets as one of the things that we want to work on, what we're working on through. So that would be us contracting a videographer to go out and gather different video images. We are also working currently with the aforementioned group, the the downtown BIAs and the Comox Valley Chamber on a video acquisition project. So the idea there is that they want to collect some data or some video on their downtown areas, and we want to also use that same video in tourism or visitors facing marketing. And so we're working together to sort of pool our resources towards collecting those. And so the other thing is that we often advocate, and I believe it's actually noted in this MRDT business plan, for a fund that supports community groups who want to be able to develop or incrementally increase tourism product. And that would be where an opportunity like something like this could potentially sit.
Sounds good. Thanks very much.
Excellent. I don't see any further questions or comments at this point, but yeah, I do just want to really extend our gratitude for the report today and its clarity. And I think we did have a motion to receive, so I'll dispense of that as a unanimous receipt. And there is a motion if somebody's comfortable. And Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, well, sorry, I'll move that we receive the report and accept the terms of reference as in the report.
Excellent. So the CAO recommendations, okay?
Yep.
Somebody like to second that? Excellent. That's been moved and seconded. And any questions or comments? I see none. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. Perfect. Okay, next we have the request for the Florence Spielberg Center. And Councillor McCollum, sorry.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll just move the CAO recommendation that based on the January 17th, 2022 staff report, Vancouver Island Health Authority requests to use Florence Spielberg Center for Community Immunization Clinic. Council approve option 1 and approve the license of occupation agreement between the Vancouver Island Health Authority and the city for the use of the Florence Spielberg Center upper floor for the purpose of operating a community COVID-19 immunization clinic, and that staff be directed to not enforce the rental fee rate as outlined in the Recreation Facility Rental and User Bylaw, fee bylaw number 1673, 1992, and instead set a unique one-time rental rate equivalent to the revenue received in 2019 for the same period for the upper floor of the Florence Spielberg Center for the license term, and that the mayor and an officer of the city be authorized to execute all documentation related to the license of occupation agreement.
So it's been moved and seconded. Thank you, Councillor McCollum, for reading that. That was a lengthy one. Any questions or comments, or actually maybe I'll pass over to staff, Mr. Parvit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If council has any questions, Ms. Saunders is available for response. We're happy to provide this facility. It's a hugely important step. That's why we provided it before. There is some inconvenience for user groups. Staff have been very proactive as soon as the request came out, and we've done our very best to accommodate and realign events. Unfortunately, because it is the largest hosting facility in the valley, sometimes the location is the only one that can happen. So there's been a limited number of impacted parties, but we've done our very best to do that. The health orders themselves, though, are also going to be affecting gatherings, etc. And I can say that just excellent work by our staff to respond as quick as we can with VIA. And it is a bit of a technicality that it's here. It is something that we may look at in terms of the delegation of authorities, because this did cause a little bit of concern to some members of VIA, although we did this the same way the last time. So this is a process that we have, but happy to look into efficiencies as per discussion we had earlier.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And yeah, and I do acknowledge this is a bit of a housekeeping item because they're already in there and they're already using it. The feedback that I've gotten actually is quite good as per their other venues that they've had. They've been very efficient and made good use of the space. Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. The details of this are in the report, but just for the public record and anyone who might be tuning in, I wonder if staff can comment on the financial aspects and what the rent will actually be, and just that aspect of the arrangement, please.
Sorry, I got to turn your mic on. There you go.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ms. Saunders can speak to it.
Thank you. Through the CAO to Mayor and Council. So the rental rate that is being recommended is based on the same approach we took in the summer when we leased the space to VIHA for a community immunization clinic, and that's based on 2019 revenue actuals. And so for this time period from January to the end of May, that's $43,000. And we use that number because it's the best predictor of what that rental revenue would have been for that time period, and negotiated that with VIHA. It is a lower rate than what would be charged if they were to pay the rental rates according to the fees and charges bylaw, which is approximately, and I should have it in front of me, but it's approximately $613 per day. So if we charge that actual rate, it would have been a total of $90,100 plus tax for the same time period. So we're recommending to council a different fee be applied, and really just VIHA's intention with the use of the space is to make sure that the city remains whole. So any other additional costs that come with operating the space, such as custodial requirements and that type of thing, are covered by VIHA. But it is not intended for the city to make any money off of this type of service.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian. And if you didn't hear Susie, he did say thanks very much for the comments. I didn't get the microphone on fast enough, but no, really appreciate it and appreciate the fact that, again, we're working hand in hand with VIHA to make sure that a city asset like this can be used to its fullest potential, and they're basically reciprocating by saying we won't lose money on it, but it's not like we're renting it at full rate for every day either. So I think it's a fairly fair partnership. That being said, we do have a motion on the floor, and all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And next we have an updated proposal for variance number 2107 at 1600 Riverside Lane. Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm happy to move the CAO recommendation, and I'll read it based on the January 17th, 22 staff report, development permit with variances number 2107, 1600 Riverside Lane. Council approve option 1 and proceed with issuing development permit with variance number 2107. Direct staff to draft a housing agreement with conditions described below and register under section 483 of the Local Government Act and section 219 of the Land Title Act prior to the issuance of development permit with variance number 2107, including 2 units in the existing building rented at $711.75 for 120 consecutive months, and 3 units in the new building rented at $806.65 for 120 consecutive months. Furthermore, that council approve an exemption for the minimum floodplain setback specified in the City of Courtenay Floodplain Management Bylaw number 1743/94, subject to the registration of a covenant under section 219 of the Land Title Act to ensure the property is constructed with the recommendations outlined in the report of geotechnical assessment, proposed apartment building, 1600 Riverside Lane, Courtenay, BC, dated November 20th, 2020, and that the applicant saves harmless the city from any claims for flood damage or injury.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. Thanks very much, Councillor Frisch. That was a long one as well. And I'll pass it over to our CAO, Jeff Garbutt.
And thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Seta is here to give us a presentation on the application. Thank you.
If you'd like to come sit at the table over here where the microphone is next to Councillor Hillian. Oh. Touch, you can do it right from your seat, right where you are. We're just going to make your screen a little bit bigger for us. All right, we'll make your screen a bit bigger and then we'll let you go. Oh yeah, Mr. Garbutt.
And thanks. Also, council is aware the applicant, Mr. Browning, is here as well. Mr. Seta will start, and if there's questions, you can answer them, or the developer is here as well.
Sure. Thank you, through CAO to Mayor and Council. I'd like to present the development permit with variance number 2107. Third time. Just a little bit background of this application. The application was reviewed and discussed previously twice in the previous council, in November and December. The last meeting, December 6th, council deferred making decision on this particular application, in particular for the requesting more information regarding the affordable housing provisions. Staff and applicants had a conversation, discussing about the new proposal, and the subsequently applicants submitted their proposal. The letter is attached, number 5, toward the end of this report. The applicants is proposing 2 units in the existing building, rented at the $711.75 for 120 consecutive months, which is 10 years, no change, and also 3 units in the new buildings in the phase 3, in the 50 units multi-residential unit. The applicants are proposing the rent at $860 and 65 cents for same rates and same period of time, 120 consecutive months. The way of saying 120 consecutive months is that we know when the new building is complete and available, but the premise is the rate won't change for 10 years whenever it's the units become available. So that concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer questions, and also the applicants at the site. So yes, let us know. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Tats. I really appreciate it. And we do have a Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mayor. And thanks, Tats, for the report. I don't have a question here. I just wanted to say I'm just extremely happy to support this development. And I want to thank Mr. Browning for being so responsible, so responsive to Council's request to include 5 affordable housing units, which will rent at 27% below market rates for 10 years. It was been a bit of a journey, and I just appreciate you being so responsive at that point in things, and happy to support it.
Thanks, Councillor Cole-Hamilton and Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'll just quickly echo my appreciation to the developer for stepping up and helping us provide some housing in the valley. I think it's exceptional. I did have a question for Mr. Seta regarding the agreement, and I'm sorry I couldn't find the information, but I was wondering, it was mentioned that there would be some sort of penalty if it wasn't if this agreement wasn't followed through on, and I'm sure it will be, but I'm just wondering what that sort of carrot is, what that penalty would be if it wasn't rented. Has that been worked out, or is that something in the works?
I'm sorry, can you clarify, please?
Yeah, I was interested in the report. It mentions that there would be a penalty if this agreement was not followed through on, and I'm just wondering what the penalty would be if the units weren't rented out as described in the agreement.
Well, that's something that we will be proceeding in consultation with the lawyer. What's the appropriate? Mostly different examples exist, but we were waiting for the lawyer's advice, and then
We froze.
once staff review and also applicant review.
Excellent. Thanks, Mr. Seta. Your video and audio is cutting in and out a little bit, but Mr. Garbutt has also offered to jump in. And
sorry, through the mayor to Councillor Frisch, the instrument that's going to be registered on title will include basically financial impacts payable in accordance with the agreement. Sometimes it's called a rent charge, weirdly, because we're talking about rental units, but rent charge is a notation through that agreement. At this point, we understand that the demand is so high for our rental housing. We're certainly hoping that's not going to be an issue, but managing and ensuring that the agreement is complied with is the purpose of those instruments.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks very much.
And Councillor McCollum.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just really pleased to see this coming back so quickly. I know it really has been a process to get us here, and I also would like to express my appreciation to the applicant for continuing to work with us and reach a proposal that works for council and the housing needs in our community. I did have a question just still on the parking plan. I think it's a minor one, and I don't believe this is going to be a sticking point for me at this point, but there are 2 accessible parking stalls noted on the parking plan, but they're only in proximity to the entrances to the existing building and none in the new building. And I just want clarity as to whether or not we would require that there be accessible parking near the entrance to the new building as well, and if that's something that would perhaps be addressed at the next stage in this development process. It's on page 164 of our agenda package.
Thank you, through CEO to Mayor Council. Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a really good point. So this is the final stage of the development permit approval process. So at this stage, the process-wise, not quite sure if we can make changes to the plan, but we'll have to think about the more appropriate process. I think there's a way to make adjustment to the attachment, but I have to consult CEO and the development services directors process-wise.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks, Councillor McCollum. And with that, we do have a motion on the floor. I don't see any further questions. But I think, again, on behalf of council, I want to just reiterate our thanks to the developer for working with us through this as we provide staff with better clarity and get our house in order. So really appreciate everybody working together to get to this point. It is much, much appreciated. With that, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. All right. And next on the agenda is the official community plan consultation for public review.
There's a motion.
Did you want to move that?
I was going to move, Mr. Mayor, that based on the January 17th, 2022 staff report, official community plan, official consultation and public review of the draft, that council supports staff to proceed with the official consultation and review process with the stakeholders as well as members of the public.
All right, that's been moved and seconded, and I'll pass it over to Mr. Garvin.
Thank you. Through Mayor and Council, I'm really pleased to have this in front of you. Staff report gives an overview of the consultation steps up to and including adoption, consideration of adoption. The report itself provides the highlights around the draft OCP, how it differs from our existing OCP and some of the key focus areas. Particularly, I want to draw Council's attention to page 3 of the report, page 180, page 179 of the agenda, page 2 through 6 of the staff report itself. It's a real overview of the highlights within that OCP, how it's been developed in response to both the big picture direction, our sustainability and climate adaptation principles, as well as input from the public, our consultant, and the advisory committee. There's a couple of innovations, I think, and we really appreciated our time with council in our study sessions. The development permit areas are going to be, there's some consolidation. And then from an enforcement perspective, the movement of those specific guidelines into the zoning bylaws so as to have some teeth, which we don't typically have to deal with on development permits, but it's a fact. It's really important that we move through that. On page 8 of the staff report, there's an overview of our consultation requirements. And given the situation we have in COVID, we won't be having any face-to-face consultation. There'll be online engagement. And then I think it's really important that staff are going to reach out to our stakeholder groups and offer to meet either virtually or distanced to ensure that it's clear, what this new official community plan is going to mean for them and what it means for our community. Critical has been the background work that's happened through this OCP process, and the consultation was back-ended so as to move forward in our statutory consultation. We will have the direction from council on the notice period. There's been a lot of good work that's been done. We anticipate that we'll get some good feedback. And when the report comes back for first and second, it's going to have an overview of what we heard, how the bylaw may or may not be recommended for to be amended and considered for council. And there may be some areas where we don't recommend making changes based on the input we have. That's just a simple process. But Mr. Seta is here for some additional questions if council had them. We have our staff recommendation that's been moved. And we're really looking forward to this next stage on this very important project. The staff recommendations on page 178 of the agenda.
All right, thanks so much for that update. And Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to express appreciation to staff for all the amazing work that's gone on. And I want to just emphasize that this has all taken place during a global pandemic, which has been a huge impingement on our ability to move forward with many projects. I think the fact that staff have brought this project to this stage with tremendous cooperation, both from council and the various community members who have been involved, is a real credit to all involved. And I think as the public consultation takes place, it's a report that will stand the test of time and do us proud as a community. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hilling. I appreciate that. I don't see any further questions. Oh, Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I also just wanted to say how pleased I am with not only the result, but the process and highlight that just how big of a step this is for Courtney to modernizing our city. And I'm really excited about it. And I hope a lot of people will take the time to read through it and understand the vision and support us. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Councillor Frisch. And moving down the list, Councillor Morin.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I was curious about process in terms of the advisory committee. First of all, I'd like to express thanks to the advisory committee for all their work. Of course, it's volunteer based. I mean, maybe they get some sandwiches or something, I don't know, but during Zoom meetings, that's probably hasn't been that easy. And of course, they put in a ton of work to getting to this point, you know, balancing all the different groups and needs and wants themes going forward. So not an easy task. And our staff who worked with the advisory committee, thanks to them. I'm curious whether we have any, I've been talking a lot about evaluation tonight, but if we have any way of getting feedback from the committee in terms of the process, I think those things are really valuable going forward with all kinds of things that we do. I'm just wondering if there is a process in terms of getting feedback from those committee members of what the process was like, what could have been done differently, what went well, you know, all those things that can help us with other projects going forward. Thank you.
With that, I'll pass it over to Mr. Carter. Oh.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Morin. On page 10 of the staff report at the top, it talks about the advisory committee. The next steps for the advisory committee, they're going to provide a report to council for first and second. We understand, I think it's planned that they'll have a bit of engagement with council on that and their opportunity to say thank you. The first and original draft that we workshopped, council had their support and endorsement, but they really, I think a thank you and interaction with council would be great. In terms of feedback, I think that's really good. And Mr. Seta advised that both the work that he and the project has been led by Nancy Goddard, that there's really been good feedback. But I think I agree with you. It's important to have an emergency plan. They call it a hot wash on how that worked, you know. And I would say, given the adjustments that had to be made as a result of COVID, because council may recall that the project was envisioned and a lot of the background work was before the changes that had to be made. And so, you know, I think we learned quite a bit on the value of and the strength and the abilities of online engagement, but we also utilized face-to-face, but in an outdoor environment. So a lot of good stuff was there, and I look forward to that feedback, and I strongly support that kind of casting backwards, because although we don't do this that often, a lot of the engagement that we do is transferable between. So they'll be part of our first and second report, and there'll be engagement directly with the advisory committee.
You bet.
Yeah, I think that it's always good to get that feedback, because going forward, when we ask community members to be part of a process, it's good for them to know that they can count on hopefully a good experience, and if there are challenges, that those challenges are addressed, because it is a big thing for community members to get involved, and I think that's a good process. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Morin. And I think that's it for comments and questions at this point in time. And again, just to reiterate how amazing it is that this process is at this point, and I think how confident council feels about it, and just the great work the staff have done, and all the volunteers that have participated. And I think to Councillor Frisch's point, you know, this will be the opportunity for people out there to read through the document and give us your feedback over the coming months. So really appreciate that. We have the motion on the floor, so I'll just call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And next we have the Comox Valley Transit Infrastructure Study. Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that based on the January 17th, 22 staff report, Comox Valley Transit Infrastructure Study. Council approve option 1 and provide a letter in support in principle to the CVRD for only the transit exchanges and transit priority measures at the intersection of Ryan Road and Old Island Highway and at Old Island Highway and Comox Road. And that council requests that the CVRD modify the Comox Valley Transit Infrastructure Study to move the transit priority measures at the Old Island Highway and Comox Road to the short term and add traffic signal coordination along Old Island Highway from Ryan Road across the 5th Street Bridge to Cliff Avenue and 8th Street. And that council directs staff to proceed with the conceptual design in Appendix A upon completion of the 5th Street Bridge rehabilitation project.
Second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. Thanks very much. And over to Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Shaw is going to introduce this report, and just wanted to highlight the close work that we've done with the CVRD. I think this is a lot of heavy lifting they did throughout the region, and I think there's a lot of value added by our city staff in looking at those options. We heard very closely our council's questions of the big picture report, and I believe this report gives an overview of our from a professional advice on the response. I also think that we're showing some good innovation and some responsible transit-centric improvements that can go forward. So, Mr. Shaw.
Yes, thank you for that. Through the CAO to Mayor and Council, I'm pleased to present staff report, Comox Valley Transit Infrastructure Study. As Mr. Garbutt articulated, the staff and the CVRD, as well as Urban Systems, who works collaboratively with the city on many of our transportation network projects, also worked hand in hand with the CVRD on this particular project. So there was really great synergies in terms of conversation. I would like to highlight the purpose of this report is to present council with options with regards to the recommendations for the CVRD report, and then present a letter in principle to support particular items within the infrastructure study. Just briefly, the study's purpose in its entirety is to provide the city with opportunities to review transit exchange locations and look for opportunities to prioritize transit operations along the frequent transit network corridor, or the FTN. This includes recommendations for transit priority measures, as well as where transit operations are impacted by queuing or apparent delay. So the study recommends new transit exchange locations, one in South Courtney on Cliff Ave at Anfield Road, and another one within the downtown core at England Avenue between 6th and 8th. And staff are recommending supporting both of these locations as they are prescribed within the study. The study also looks for opportunities to prioritize operations along the FTN corridor. And in response to this, staff took a holistic review of the study recommendations and considered them alongside some of the guiding principles that are outlined in the city's transportation master plan and the cycling network plan. Through this lens, staff, in collaboration with the CVRD and Urban Systems, were able to create a conceptual design for a segment of the Old Island Highway that considers all notable opportunities for corridor improvements within this particular road section, while also including transit priorities that are established within the study. Additional opportunities for a broader corridor improvement were also established as part of this review process, and this extends into the downtown core as outlined in image 6 of the staff report, or page 197 of the agenda. And in short, modifications to signal timing along the FTN corridor and signal coordination along Cliff through 8th and Ryan up to Ryan Road on Old Island Highway, including the recommended queues or transit queue jumping lanes that are articulated in the study, could benefit not only just transit, but all modes of transportation within this particular corridor. And these improvements will help to achieve the guiding principles of the city's transportation master plan by designing streets that support all modes, making walking, cycling, and transit safer and more attractive. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions council may have.
Excellent. Thanks so much for your concise report there. Really appreciate it. And we have Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, thanks very much, Kyle. I just wanted to highlight how impressed I am with this. And it looks like all the people you mentioned that worked on this really rolled up their sleeves and tried to find some solutions on obviously an imperfect situation, which is all our roads, I guess, in Courtney, isn't it? So that's really great. There were a couple of things I wanted to just highlight, but I actually think they might be in Appendix B and maybe further down the road. In front of Manvero's, is that area in sort of the future plan? Manvero's Bar and Grill on Ryan Road. I think there's a bus stop there, and I didn't see it in the pictures. And if it's in the future and it's going to be worked on, then I won't even bring it up. But got some thoughts on that part of the design. Maybe I'll just leave you with that if you want.
Sure, thank you for that. Through the CAO to Mayor and Council, that's a great question. Manvero, so you're talking on Ryan Road between the bypass and Old Island Highway on the
It's right next to 7-Eleven, yeah.
Yeah. So in the design, you will see that there's an incorporation of dedicated bike facilities with a buffered protector in front of that particular bus stop, and it'll connect from the bypass and bring cycling infrastructure right up to the intersect and the Q jump lane or the future Q jump lane at Old Island Highway to head southbound.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds like you thought of it better than I did. So that's great to hear. I appreciate that. And the other area was just coming onto the 5th Street Bridge from that side, from the Lewis side. And I guess there's some signage issues where, it often happens where the bike lane ends, right? And I just something there in the way of paint on the road, or I know there's a sign on the bridge that says please share the road, and so emphasizing that more than the end of the bike lane could be useful as well. Just because a lot of people are going to be coming together there on bikes and scooters and cars and all the rest. But otherwise, really impressed, and thanks very much.
And next we have Councillor Theos.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Kyle, for the report. One of the things that I've been noticing is that there doesn't seem to be garbage facilities by the bus stops, and I can't imagine that it would cost a lot to put some sort of bin near the bus stops. Are there any other reasons why we don't have bins near the bus stops for waste?
Thank you for that. Through the CAO to Mayor and Council, I appreciate the question. There is intended to be garbage bins at those particular locations. They just have yet to be installed. They were actually a winter operation project. We've been hit with a bit of snow that has delayed that, but we do have them in stock. And we currently have 13 in-service transit facilities within the City of Courtney's jurisdiction, and all 13 will be receiving garbage cans.
Oh, thank you very much, Kyle.
So thanks very much, Councillor Theos. All right, with that being said, we do have a motion on the floor, I believe. And so with that being said, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Perfect. And next we have a similar but different motion. Councillor McCollum.
Similar diagrams for sure. I'll move that based on the January 17th, 2022 staff report, 5th Street Bridge rehabilitation, transit priority lanes / bike lane implementation. Council approve option 1 and direct number 1, staff to proceed with the implementation of the bike lanes while saving space for future transit upgrades on Old Island Highway and 5th Street. And number 2, that staff defer the contemplated works until more favorable weather painting conditions, and then leverage contractors within the city's standing offer agreement to do the work.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that. I appreciate it. And I'll pass it over to Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Really excited. This is a second report, and I would say that both of these reports are collaboration. And the second report is from Mr. Davidson is really builds on some of the discussions that we had during our strategic planning process. I think it's really important where we can sort of extend and see where we have some low-hanging fruit to build on some of the projects and integrate them together. So Mr. Davidson, I'll have a short overview of this report as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Through CIO to Mayor and Council, I'm pleased to present the Fifth Street Bridge Rehabilitation Transit Priority Lanes Bike Lane Implementation Report. So as detailed in Director Shaw's recent staff report, the CBRD has previously presented Council with the Comox Valley Transit Infrastructure Study. The study looks for opportunities to prioritize transit operations along the Frequent Transit Network, FTN, to support service increases and ridership growth. As the Fifth Street Bridge project nears completion, there may be an opportunity to redesign this corridor in coordination with the removal of single-lane alternating condition that is being required during construction. So city staff working closely with CBRD, supported by Urban Systems, have created a conceptual design for this segment of road that includes the transit priority measures recommended in the CBRD study, as well as including multimodal transportation opportunities that would not be possible if the transit-only lane remains. So Appendix A to this report depicts a cross-section that can be installed at the completion of the Fifth Street Bridge project, which includes bike lanes and safe space for future transit priority queue jumps at the intersections recommended in the transit infrastructure study. In support of this, pricing has been received from 2 contractors within the city's existing standing offer agreement, in addition to Park DeRoshi, who are the prime contractor on the Fifth Street Bridge project. So it's worth noting that winter is not considered a good time to complete road painting. As such, deferring the painting works until more favorable weather conditions may result in a better long-term installation. So as such, staff are recommending to implement the proposed bike lanes while saving space for future transit upgrades on Old Island Highway 5th Street, and to defer the contemplated works until more favorable weather painting conditions, and then leverage contractors within the city's standing offer agreement to do the work. And with that, I am happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Mr. Davidson. And I do have a question or comment from Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thanks for the report, Chris. It's great to see this coming forward and what the vision for this corridor is going to be. I think it's a big improvement from what we had previously, and it's obviously a great opportunity to work on our other aspects of travel while we get ready to take our single lane alternating traffic markings off the road. I did have a couple questions. I guess the first one, or the most pressing, is how long we would expect to leave the current markings on the road space once the Fifth Street works is complete, before we implement what's proposed in the report here.
Oh, great question. As soon as the project works are done, the paint would be reverted back to its pre-project condition. And then as soon as weather improved, contractors within our standing offer agreement would come along and do the work proposed as contemplated if council so directed.
I see. I didn't fully understand that from the report. So what we're proposing is to put the previous road markings back in place, because that's what we already have contracted, and then we would in turn lift those new paint markings back off the road and then put in the new ones that are in this report. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly correct, yes.
Okay. The other question I had too, or just I wanted a bit of clarification on one of the diagrams where Comox Road meets Old Island Highway. There is a green zone that's marked as a area of potential conflict between modes of travel, but it's right over the crosswalk, which is kind of where bike traffic is traveling now. But when people are in the road space crossing, it's also when people are moving through that bike lane. And I'm thinking that there needs to be some adjustment even on the Comox Road side in order to have both modes moving through that intersection safely.
Great comment. Certainly happy to take that back for review. I see Director Shaw has turned his camera back on. Kyle, did you want to add some comment to this discussion?
Yeah, if I may, thank you through the CAO to Mayor and Council. Great question, great point. As you can imagine, this particular drawing is preliminary in nature to provide an overview idea of what the corridor potential could look like. And those details that you described will be dealt with at the finality of that drawing, but a rejig of that intersection and a more fluid crossing that runs parallel to the green at Comox would have to be installed as part of it. And it is noted in some of our comments along the way.
Thank you. I'll give others a turn to speak. I am definitely, I'm a little less certain of the recommendation, knowing that we will be repainting the road space in short order after putting paint down. I mean, I recognize that we've already essentially paid for this service, but the optics of it are making us look like we weren't necessarily thinking of these resources as best they could be used. So it does make me wonder if we would be better off to look at putting the different road markings down at a less optimal time of year, which I believe is option 2. So I'll let others weigh in.
On that point, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Garbutt.
Through the chair, now our staff have made a recommendation. I just want to make sure that we speak to the question that you have regarding timing. So, Mr. Davidson, why would we take recommendation 1 as opposed to recommendation 2?
Oh, great question. Thank you. The reason is cost. It's approximately $30,000 cheaper to proceed with option 1 as compared to option 2, and the other is timing for applying paint. So if the project is due to wrap up within the next few weeks here, it's not an optimal time to be painting roads. So knowing that it would only be a temporary solution going down, it would be acceptable for the short term, and then ideally would be coming back to paint a more long-term solution when the weather improves. So cheaper and better long-term result.
And then, Mr. Davidson, if could you expound? Is that relative to, the changes once the bridge work is done with the temporary lighting and various things? Is that why we, in addition to the timeline, we couldn't just leave it as is?
Oh, yeah, great question. Thank you. No, it can't be left as is long term. So something must be done immediately after the project completes. So the line painting that's there now to support single lane alternating traffic cannot be left on its own. As soon as the project completes, the contractor will be removing all of their on-site infrastructure, specifically the temporary light signals, all the signage, the DMS boards, everything that supports the current traffic pattern. Once that stuff disappears, the existing traffic patterns will not be adequately supported and would not be safe without that supporting infrastructure. So it's not the case that we can leave what's out there for a duration of 2 to 3 months. Something temporary must be done. It's already built into the contract that the contractor is required to repaint what was there prior to the project. So as such, staff are recommending we go back to what was in place prior to the project, and then proceed with this new concept once the weather improves.
Excellent, thanks. I'm maybe going to give it back to Councillor McCollum, because I think you have a subsequent.
Yeah, thanks for, I do, and I turned my mic off. Thanks for that clarification. That does shed some light. I suppose my other question then is, if we proceed with option 1, we remove the paint markings that are currently on the road space, which makes sense. Is it a possibility, or am I hearing you correctly, that we could be putting something on the road space that is like that temporary paint that you sometimes see in road projects where, it's in between laying layers of asphalt, and it's not like the whole, long-term paint. I'm not explaining myself very well, but could we have temporary road markings that aren't fully what we had before, but don't take us down the road of having to grind up more paint in a few months while we wait for better painting conditions? Can you just clarify that?
Excellent question. Thank you. Yes, that would be a possibility. Staff would have to explore that further. I would be hesitant to recommend that at this point in time, as it would be a deviation from the contract, and we're we're in a situation with a contractor where any deviation is likely to result in a cost increase, even if it's a reduction in scope. So this is why we generally tend to avoid change orders in construction contracts, as we all know. As such, we would recommend to stick with the original intent of the contracts and fulfill it as intended.
Okay, thanks for explaining that.
Thanks, Councillor McCollum. And next we have Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. So yeah, thanks, Mr. Davidson. Really appreciate it. Following on that line of questioning, how long do you think it would take to pull up the new markings and put down the even newer markings? If you don't mind me putting it that way, are we talking days or weeks?
Excellent question. Thank you. Completely weather dependent. If we get a nice sunny stretch in April, we may be able to jump on it at that time. If we get it on seasonably warm March, there may be opportunities. It's completely dependent on her.
Yeah, so you know, ideally, I guess I don't want to back you into a corner, but this isn't a one-day project, I would guess, but it's also not a 1-month project, I would also guess.
Oh, I'm sorry. I must have misunderstood your previous. So you're asking how long to physically do the work?
That's what. But I appreciate the other answer. That was insightful as well.
Okay, yeah, not more than, geez, I would say, well, the contractor can flip it back to pre-existing in like 2 days. So anything longer than a week, I would see is, yeah, certainly not longer than a week, I would imagine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what I thought. Thank you very much. You know, I did have one more point, and I had pointed it out in the last report. I don't know if you have any thoughts about it. It's sort of when those people using the side of the road, cyclists, whatever, come on to get onto the bridge. And can we do something with a sign or something on the road that just sort of highlights, you know, people are coming together and everyone be patient and all the rest. I know we have that one sign on the bridge that says share the road, but maybe something a little more obvious might be better.
Great comment. Thank you. Yes, staff are happy to take that comment back into consideration for the design. As Director Shaw mentioned, there's still some massaging, some work to be done on the design. So yes, happy to consider that.
Thanks so much.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Frisch, and thanks for the clarification. And we won't hold you to that 1 week timeline, but I'm sure as it moves forward and things unfold and there's better clarity, you'll probably come back and say, you know, here's a much better time frame so that we can make sure everybody's prepared for that. And with that, Councillor Paul Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chris. I just wanted to try and understand the reason that we can't ask our existing contractor who we paid to do the eventual markings, the final ones. You said that any change, even if it reduces scope, would result in a cost increase. I'm having a little trouble wrapping my head around that. Can you just give me a hand with understanding that?
Yes, excellent question. Thank you very much. In fact, we did ask the original contractor for a price to do these works, and they did submit that price. It's detailed in the report. So they came in at $30,000 higher than the other two contractors that we asked for pricing. This includes any rebates we might have expected for what was already included in the construction contract initially. So we'd originally envisioned that asking our prime contractor to do this work would result in a much cheaper price, considering that they were already sort of contractually obligated to do a significant amount of repainting work out there already. Unfortunately, since this is a change to the contract, it's a change order, they are, of course, allowed to propose any price they wish for work outside of the original contract. And unfortunately, that pricing is higher than other options available, and significantly so, $30,000.
Okay, so just so I understand, so essentially, our existing contractor wouldn't net it out. This would be a completely fresh, even if they weren't doing the original painting, the one they'd be contracted to do didn't have to do that. They would still charge us without netting out any of those costs for the new one. That's why it's more expensive. And when they do the repainting immediately after the bridge work concludes, I mean, I guess those won't be optimal painting conditions either. but I guess it won't matter because those markings will be sort of fairly ephemeral. Okay, thank you. And I would sort of support if there's any way of having a more temporary level of marking for the markings immediately after the bridge is completed. That seems like a wise way of moving forward. Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I appreciate the clarification. You know, at the end of the day, you know, it ends up being although it's hard to compute sometimes with our lizard brains, but you know, it's going to be more expensive and it's not the optimal time. So by deferring those paints, it's going to be cheaper and it'll result in a better product. So appreciate that staff have actually gone down this sort of rabbit hole to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck. And Councillor Hillian.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I wanted to reference the paragraph at the bottom of page 214 regarding both public consultation and the impact on businesses in the area. It indicates that businesses in the Puntledge area passed on information at the start of the project regarding negative impact on their businesses. And I'm wondering if there's been any updates to that information. And in addition, what changes will you make to the way this new initiative is communicated to the public based on your obvious sensitivity to those feelings that are out there?
Excellent question. Thank you very much. No, there have been no updates based on what was initially communicated from the businesses in the Puntledge area. So we did receive comment from them earlier in the project, specifically concerns around lack of left turns into their business area. We have considered that as part of this design. So you'll notice the left turn lanes are back. And so this allows access into that area. Traveling in both directions. We've also brought back left turns into the Lewis Center, which was another point of complaint. So the point of the comment in this staff report, just to flag up general concern from the public that they did want to see us return to pre-project conditions. However, we believe we've accommodated those concerns or mitigated the concerns with this revised design. So there may be some comment back, but frankly, I think everyone should be happy with this proposed design.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. The idea that everyone would be happy about anything that we do is a rather novel concept.
Sorry, it's on me. Sorry.
Just as an aside, in the early stages of this project of changing the line configurations, we had a letter from a constituent asking why the city of Courtenay was run like a communist dictatorship. And when I explored what was behind his thinking, he was objecting to us what he thought of as an arbitrary designation of bus lanes on our local roads. So while that might be an extreme reaction, I'm just curious about what has been the general response from the public about the lane configurations, apart from you've mentioned the business impact, but I know you've been getting all sorts of feedback, and I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole about what's going on with the bridge, but just with regards to the lane configurations and how that whole aspect has been organized, interested in the feedback you've been getting in general.
Oh, absolutely. Great question. We have been getting a wide variety of feedback. So a positive comment, I can say that transit has been quite happy with the priority lanes, same with some of the other priority lane users, emergency services, taxis who are carrying some of our support personnel for the community. Very, very positive feedback in that regard. We've gotten some positive feedback on the bike boxes and priority lanes from cyclists. And we did receive some negative feedback from businesses in the beginning, but since then it seems to have quieted down. I think everyone's sort of learned the traffic patterns and been able to manage them and reach their destinations accordingly. The one area I would say that is sort of outstanding, the other side of the bridge, the downtown side of the bridge, the detour down the back lane, the impacts to local traffic on neighborhoods around First Street. traffic on Anderton, lack of parking, on-street parking for some of the residents on Anderton, and then effects on some of the businesses on Fifth Street. That's been a steady stream of concern. So we're eager to return that side of the bridge back to its original pre-project condition, to mitigate that as much as possible.
Thanks very much for you and your staff's work in managing all of those issues. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Hillian, and thanks staff for your diligent work on this massive project and looking to see how we can take some of the lessons learned to bring us so to speak into the future. We do have a motion on the floor, so with further, sorry, Councillor Theos, you snuck in there 1 second. Councillor Theos.
Thanks, Mayor. Chris, thanks for all the answers and discussion, and I'm sure you're tired now. It's been a long discussion, but I wanted to ask you about with the contractor, for instance, because again we don't have a specific date. I just wanted to have a bit of an insight of with all the challenges that that we're seeing with labor shortages and whatnot. Are they on container with us, like as in terms of when the time is right, we'll be able to move forward with them, or could that be an issue also moving forward with staffing of their project?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. Thank you. So you're referring to the painting contractors within the city's existing standing offer agreement. Yes, we do have, great question. So we would have to book them far enough in advance. My understanding is they do have staff available for this. They know we're interested. Of course, we're still waiting for council direction before we book anything formally, but we would do so quite quickly and following council direction. Short answer is I don't think it would have an impact. We're more of a preferred customer, especially since we've entered into a standing offer agreement with them. So I don't think there would be any significant scheduling issues getting them out to do this work.
Thank you, Chris. Much appreciated.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, Councillor Theos. I'm looking around slowly this time to make sure we're all good. I think we've sort of exhausted all the questions and information. So again, thanks to staff for that. We have a motion on the floor, and so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Excellent. All right. Next, we have the ABICC request for resolutions and a call for nominations, and that's the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities association that we have. And I'll maybe pass it over to Mr. Garbett.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, we haven't brought forward specific resolutions. We're happy to respond to council on any ABICC resolutions. We had taken a stab at what I would consider an important resolution related to complex care. It builds on. I know we're not proceeding. I believe we're not going to proceed on another motion later. I was advised. However, ABICC is the typical location, and then following UBCM to have some discussions, and we've consistently had some discussions on reaching out, and we have had some success with discussions with individual ministries, but we do have taken an attempt at a resolution regarding complex care through Ms. O'Connell, and we could provide that should council wish. And we would also, if council has any other resolutions they would like to contemplate, the information from ABICC is there. Just an important note, though, is the deadline is imminent. And if we don't submit anything to ABICC, you would have to go through the process to attempt to submit resolutions directly to UBCM. Just with that, Your Worship, back to you.
All right, thanks very much for that. And I see Councillor Morin. Oh, or did you want to? Okay, maybe I'll let you, Councillor Morin, if you'd like to speak.
Yeah, I was going to speak to the deadline, and it feels like this kind of, for whatever reason, kind of creeped up on us. snuck up on us. Yeah, it would be nice if we'd had some time to sort of formulate what we might want to do, because now there isn't a meeting until afterwards. So I don't know if any of us do have some ideas around that, if there's any way to get around that in order to submit something, but just a question.
Thank you, Councillor Morin. I did speak with the ABICC earlier this evening to see whether or not there was an option to submit any late recommendations or resolutions to them. They were very clear that the deadline is a hard deadline. And they also mentioned, because the ABICC would be moving forward with a virtual platform, that the opportunity to present motions on the floor, resolutions on the floor for immediate consideration will likely not be there again this year. They did say, though, however, that we could push forward resolutions directly through the EBCM, and just cautioned us to be mindful of what's gone to ABICC and to make sure that we're not duplicating and kind of distracting from resolutions coming out of the island constituency.
Yeah, and so it might be worthwhile at this point. Did you want to bring up that motion just so everybody can take a look at it?
So my apologies. It's on my work laptop as opposed to the shared screen, but it is a bit of a hybrid of the resolution that was proposed under the council resolution section of tonight's agenda by Councillor Cole Hamilton. But as you know, with ABICC and UBCM resolutions, they have to meet a certain resolution convention structure. So I took the intent of that motion and tweaked it a bit to fit that resolution structure for ABICC. And I can read it to you, but if you want to follow along, kind of looking under that council resolution section and taking a look at Councillor Cole Hamilton's resolution, the whereas preambles are very similar. So whereas cities are bearing the brunt of the COVID-19 pandemic and its impacts, which have exacerbated existing challenges related to mental health and substance use, homelessness, lack of affordable housing, and access to complex care support services. And whereas the Comox Valley has experienced an estimated 74% increase in homelessness since March of 2020, and North Vancouver Island has experienced an estimated 100% increase in illicit drug toxicity deaths in 2021 over 2020. Therefore, be it resolved that the UBCM requests the provincial government to urgently increase services and housing for those with complex mental health and substance use needs, including shelter, social, and supportive housing, and critically, the implementation of complex care housing in the North Island region. So the intent is very similar to the draft resolution provided, or the resolution provided by Councillor Cole Hamilton. It's just bringing it to a North Island lens, and then putting the call on the provincial government to fill those service gaps within the community.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's maybe I'll just add a little bit, which some of you may have heard, like the urban communities have gone to the provincial government requesting urgent responses, but Courtney's small enough, as are many of the other communities at ABICC, that we still have the same challenges, but we're not part of that urban caucus to be able to get that same response. But I'll pass back to Councillor Morin.
Thanks. I don't know if this is a point of order, but I guess we're on the agenda for the ABICC, and then we're having a resolution read out on kind of the fly that we weren't prepared for. And then there's also a similar motion that is on the agenda that may get, something might happen with that. So I guess I don't really feel comfortable talking about this resolution kind of on the fly when we haven't been prepared that this was going to be a possible resolution for ABICC. I mean, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
And it's just a potential, so it's not that it has to be or not. So it's just there for discussion. So.
Yeah, because the complex care resolution is actually pretty complex in terms of the wording and how to, I'm a little concerned about kind of doing it on the fly, as it were.
Fair enough. Thanks for your feedback. Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. I wonder if there's an opportunity to obviously go through our resolutions of council, and then afterwards we might come back to this particular one and consider if we might want to send it to AVICC. And then also if there would be an opportunity to wordsmith it a bit by email, just to get it just right, I suppose, if that's a major concern, if there are ideas from council. And seeing that no, but
Sorry, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Frisch. The resolution has to be as proposed and approved at a council meeting. I did clarify that with them as well. Could we have a situation where council directed staff to draft resolutions with the intent of achieving a certain outcome? And the answer was it has to be as resolved by council.
okay.
Not-
Well, knowing that, I'd be comfortable moving forward when we get there to consider the resolution that you read out, and maybe it's possible to type it up and put it on the screen at some point. Considering there aren't really any other options, and maybe it's worthwhile just getting this going, even if it's not perfect. So thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at solutions, I mean, the only other potential opportunity we might have is to call a special meeting, say in a week or so, where the stuff can be sent out, and then we come back and contemplate just this one, AVICC resolutions as an item, but there may be multiple resolutions, if that makes sense, or potentially none. Mr. Garvin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I mean, there isn't a requirement for council to bring forth resolutions to AVICC. This is the topic that we were just talking around. Very timely. There's all sorts of interest, so it wouldn't surprise me if there would be a resolution in that regard. Really, this is AVICC is council's organization. It's elected officials, so we serve at your pleasure, and if there is some discussion, it does feel very early, this deadline, and I know that conference wise there's been a lot of moving and grooving to this, and my last recollection and conversation was that it was an in-person meeting, but it's already now been moved virtually. So difficult and challenging circumstances, and there is no requirement for us to have AVICC resolutions.
Thanks, Mr. Garbutt. I appreciate that. Councillor Hillen.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should rush into trying to come up with a resolution. In fact, in relation to the subject at hand, complex care, I would much prefer that we ask for another meeting with the minister in relation to this, because in my view, we have an undertaking from the minister in relation to this whole issue. And if we're getting the message that it's not available, I think we go back directly to the minister. And I think if we have other issues that we want to get on the table, that's a better way of moving forward with them, requesting ministerial meetings at upcoming conventions and otherwise, rather than feeling like we somehow have to craft a resolution at the last minute. There'll be no shortage of resolutions at AVICC dealing with any number of things, most of which we'll be in agreement with.
Mm-hmm. And I will be, I've got a meeting with other municipalities between now and this deadline. So there may be other municipalities on this specific topic. So when I'm talking to those other municipalities, I'll see if they've put forward a motion. And if we find that there is no motion, I mean, one of the things that we could do is find out when the deadline is for the UBCM submissions. And so if we feel compelled to, we can build again, to Councillor Hillian's idea of having some, taking our time and crafting it, same as Councillor Moore, and making sure that the language that we use is as specific and targeted as we want. So what I'm getting from this right now is we're gonna let sleeping dogs lie for right now. We'll just receive the resolution notice and we won't put any effort into it, but thanks to staff for doing that. Councillor Frisch.
You need a motion to receive? Move receipt.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes. All right. Next, we have some internal reports for Information Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission minutes. Yeah, it's been moved and seconded. I'm not sure if staff wanted to speak to it or if any councillors had specific questions. And I do see some lights on, and okay, I'm not sure. I can't see. Susie's too small for me to see her well, but I'll pass it over to Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Actually, was noticing just reading the minutes that I know we all have busy lives, that Councillor Theos is not able to attend. I'm wondering, is there an alternate for this committee, and is it possible maybe to just be notifying the alternate so that we can have someone who's present there? There's some fairly substantial things that got discussed at this meeting. I can't recall who the alternate is at this point.
All right. And so, Ms. Saunders, I don't know if you know the answer to that question, or, oh, well, then I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, through the council. As far as I understand, there is not an alternate that I'm aware of. So Councillor Theos is the council representative, but I'm not aware of an alternate. If there is one, we can absolutely notify them, but I don't believe there is one.
And Councillor Frisch wanted to jump in. So Councillor Frisch, let me turn your mic on.
Yeah, that's my recollection. I mean, Councillor Theos would remember this, but I think common practice with any of us is if we can't make a meeting, sometimes we just reach out to our fellow councillors and say, would you like to go in my place?
Yeah.
If nothing more than to experience the wonder of whatever council it is, like whatever committee it is. Yeah. So yeah, happy to move forward on that basis too.
Fair enough. So yeah, a good procedural thing of just firing an email off to council. Awesome. Thanks, Councillor Frisch. And Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm assuming that Mary Crowley is the chair of this group, but it's not actually Alan Douglas is not actually noted in the minutes who chairs the meetings, but okay, fair enough. What I wanted to do was just endorse what seems to be an initiative to look at membership and perhaps broaden it. It strikes me as interesting that there aren't really terms of reference for how long members stay on. And it's noted that somebody is stepping down, and that's brought up a discussion around perhaps bringing new members in. And I think there's actually some merit in that. You know, I know that we have new residents moving to our community all the time, and I think there's people out there who would like to get involved, who may bring experience from other communities where they've lived, or people who've lived here who haven't been aware of these opportunities. And I'd like to encourage us wherever possible to make those sorts of opportunities for engagement available with more of our residents. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Hillian. And Councillor Theos.
Oh, thank you very much, Mayor. Yeah, no, it is quite incredible to see the diverse group that's here, but the skill sets that this group does bring, it just shows you that having committees that mean something to people can bring out some very talented people to volunteer. In this case, you have school principals, more than one on this committee. You have teachers and business people, and just even an ex-counselor. So I do think that that's a great idea, Councillor Hillian, because I wouldn't imagine that there's a shortage of real skilled, talented people to step forward and continue the great work that this group does each and every time they participate. It's incredible to see the skill sets.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And Councillor Morin.
Great, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Hillian. I would love to see someone representative of the accessibility community. I have a local parent who emails me or messages every so often about accessibility for her well, he's not that young anymore. He's I guess, an older teen now in terms of accessibility. I know that many of the people on this committee are probably sensitive to that from working in schools, et cetera, but I think it would be nice to have an official kind of accessibility kind of representative on this particular committee, especially. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Moore. And yeah, and I did see, Sebastian had submitted his resignation. I know his background working with folks. So, and although it probably wasn't his particular why he was there, specifically, it'd be great to make sure that those kinds of criteria are set out when recruiting new members. Mr. Garbutt.
Through the mayor, maybe I might ask Ms. O'Connell, this is a business arising from minutes, I guess. I think if council wanted to give us direction to look at the terms of reference, RCCS staff can do that. But I would appreciate a motion. If I just want to know if I'm out of order, Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you through the CAOs. The appointment of members to the advisory commission is at the sole discretion of council. So if council wanted to provide direction regarding the consideration of future appointments, from what I can tell, there is no criteria in here for consideration of appointments. That is something that would be appropriately provided through direction through council to staff to investigate or to come back with.
Excellent. And maybe to Councillor Theos, and I know you didn't attend that meeting, but at other meetings, is that one of the things, are they looking for direction, or are they wanting to even provide some advice to us on how to move forward? What's that? Well, but that was November 4th, but there was one in December and one before that, et cetera. So I just wondered.
No, I think the group is a little bit of both, to be honest with you. It seems like there are times where they are open to learning how the city handles certain issues regarding parks and recreation, and also at the same time they do appreciate being able to provide that the comments that may take us forward in a way that is very productive and meaningful. So I wonder if Susie may have some further comments on that, but from my take, I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay. Right. And I see Councillor Mr. Garbutt, did you want to jump in?
I believe Ms. Saunders has some comments.
Okay.
Oops.
Thank you through the CAO to Mayor and Council. Just to confirm, there is a terms of reference that does exist for the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee that has some general statements about the committee, its purpose, its structure. And to follow up on Councillor Theos' comments, the group has discussed the need for updating the terms of reference, but also how we increase the diversity of the group and its representation. So from that conversation, I would say the advisory committee is in support of looking at how members of the public become involved in that committee and how we ensure that it's a diverse group that represents the community, and would like to provide input into that terms of reference updating.
All right. Thanks very much for that. Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. That's really all I wanted to say. It's clear from the minutes that these folk are planning to discuss this, and I just wanted to provide that endorsement that I'm sure staff and our representative will take back to the committee. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Councillor Hillian. And Councillor Moore.
Yeah, I thought maybe Councillor Hillian was going to do a motion, but if you don't think that we need that, I just think looking at that, as Ms. Saunders said, the diversity of the committee, because we also have reconciliation is obviously a focus for us, and it would be great to have some representation from the First Nations community as well. Like, I think looking at all of our committees and how we can be more representative of the people who use the services is important. I note on here the new Hobson Park, the commentary, and it's a lovely park. And I know I've brought this up, and this is no no offense to any of the staff or the people who plan, but that was one park that was mentioned by a parent who said that it's actually not accessible for her. You know, so it's a beautiful new park, but it's not accessible to young people with particular challenges. So I think these are lenses that we do need to incorporate, not just on this committee, but especially this committee in this case. So I'm hoping that this feedback can get through, and if we need a motion, maybe someone can make it. But I think it's important that we take a look at it. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Morin and Mr. Garbutt.
Yeah, through the mayor to council, we need a motion. This would require staff time to review the terms of reference and make recommendations.
Councillor Morin.
I'll move that staff take a look at the terms of reference for the Parks and Recreation Committee, and including the representation of committee members to make it more diverse or something to that effect. Kate will make it sound great. Thank you.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. And I believe we do have the minutes on the table, so I'll dispense of those as unanimously received, so that we can contemplate the motion on, that's been proposed. And with that, Councillor Theos.
Thank you very kindly. The CAO was just talking about staff time committed. Just curious of a ballpark idea of how many hours staff time would be possibly committed.
Sorry. Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Through Councillor Theos, maybe Ms. Saunders could advise. I wouldn't think it would be a significant amount of hours, but I do think that it's something that's worthwhile looking at. It's an important committee. They provide good advice, and they're in charge of a lot of very important things to the city. So.
Okay. And Councillor, oh, were you going to answer? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Frisch.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. I was going to express a little bit of hesitation, but our CAO seems to feel like there might be some capacity to do this. I would also suggest that it could be a bit of a slow play where we get the terms of reference brought to us with some, a shorter report about, maybe not a super in depth, but we can get the ball rolling on this in that regard. And then, maybe it takes a few months or a year or something, but see what the real issues are. And then before we jump into a whole bunch of spending time on it.
Mm-hmm. And if we've already got the Echo Commission itself, which is looking at it, then maybe they're going to pull forward some recommendations for us. And although not part of the motion that's been put forward, we might want to put forward Councillor Hilling's comment, just to note who the chair is for whoever's taking the minutes, because I also don't know who did the minutes. So
and you want to know who to call, right?
Yeah, exactly. Where does the buck stop, so to speak, I guess. But and again, I think that's more of a clerical thing rather than a motion thing. But,
and I was just going to highlight, it's not one of our, I'm sure it's one of our priorities on a big scheme, but it's not, we haven't identified it yet. So if it's going to be a smaller spending of time, then I'm okay with that.
All right. Excellent. Good comments all the way around. I think we've got a motion on the table. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that's unanimous. All right. Now we're into the more exciting stuff. We're into the management reports. I couldn't be more excited. So somebody like to move receipt of the engineer management report? Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Actually, maybe I'll pass it over to Mr. Garbutt.
Yeah, your worship, that was my direction, Mr. Davidson. Sort of both in engineering and our fire, as well as are all online. Sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit there. So you can move receipt. They're available for questions. We can go directly to staff.
All right, and Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, sorry, and I feel like I was the one who made the motion to vary the agenda. Is that what we've done here? We jumped ahead. Or did I miss something? For some reason, I feel like we should. Oh, okay. Never mind. I'll catch up.
All right. Yeah, I'm just excited. We have the management reports in front of us. We have moved the engineering management report, and I was just looking to see if there's any comments regarding it. I do want to thank staff for bringing these management reports forward to us, just to give us, again, those highlighted major projects that are ongoing, where they are, and any specific notes that might give us a hint of what's happening. I think it's good enough that there are no questions, so I guess that's maybe a good thing. But do want to really recognize Mr. Garbett and senior staff for bringing these forward. So I'll take the engineering one as unanimously received. We'll move into the finance management report. If somebody would like to move and receive. Excellent. And again, this one is a little bit more fulsome, but I'm looking around and I don't see any questions or comments. But again, it's great to see kind of everything listed out here. So we've got it down for us. And with that, I don't see anybody. So that'll be unanimously received. And lastly, we have the fire department management report, and that's been received. Thank you for that. And are there any questions or comments regarding that one? And I do have one from Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Thanks very much, Mayor. It's actually not a question about this particular report. I just wanted to say that I'm really appreciating seeing these. I think this is a really great format, and I know that there've been a lot of balls in the air this year, and this is something we've been looking for, and it's just great to see exactly what we're looking for in front of us. And probably the absence of questions is a very good sign on that front. So thank you to everyone involved.
Excellent. And Councillor Moran.
Did we skip ahead? I wanted to backtrack to one point on the report, if that's okay, or are we?
Which report is that?
On the management report.
Okay. Was it engineering, finance, or fire department?
It was the item under what are we on at the moment? Because it was back with the
we were 6.4, which is the fire department. But if you had a question about something else, I mean,
well, I was just
we'd be
curious. I
flexible.
mean, it's not a big deal, but I was curious about the Sandpiper Millard water main and the piece around the archaeological reporting. If Mr. Garbett could speak to that. And the reason I'm asking is because we have our we're looking at our new kind of procedures going forward around archaeological pieces. And I just wondered if there was anything to talk about within that particular project that's brought us up to speed in that regard.
Thank you, Councillor Moran. And to Council, you may recall that this project did not require a cultural heritage permit from KFN. We have followed the process specifically. It's been an excellent process, and I can summarize, and Mr. Davidson could chime in if he'd like. But ultimately, the principles of that permitting process were followed. Very successful. We have a number of items that were human remains that were found. They've been dealt with appropriately, and we're in the process of finalizing that between our contracted archaeological firm, which is Baseline, and KFN and their representatives. And so it is a very good example of why careful attention and good planning and good practice can address a very complicated site. The remains will be interned, et cetera, but we're very happy with that. We will incorporate this permitting process into our subsequent projects, and any lessons learned that we've shared with Comox, and this is something they were developing their own process, actually, how to do this through this. And between our archaeological staff and contracted staff and the band's counterparts, I think it's gone very well. It's not complete yet in terms of the final work related to the remains and et cetera, but it's well in hand and underway. And there are permitting processes that they extend the time frame. It is really something that I think can go very well and can go very badly. And in this case, because of that pre-thought and work and communication, it's gone well. So.
Mayor, I mean, I think this is an example of it's one little line on this report that has a lot of significance, and I am really thrilled to hear how this has went. And to me, it's exciting, and I'm really happy to receive that update. And again, this is, this could just, the amount of things that are going on that even we're not aware of, the good work that's happening. I think this is wonderful. Thanks.
Thanks very much. And Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks again. Quick questions. How often do we plan to get the management report? Was it every month, every 2 months, or?
I think through Councillor Frisch to the council, my recollection of the discussion is that we would have the management report 4 times a year, and we were going to split it. And I didn't do my math right, because the recreation one was ready, and we would have had 4 and 4. So the next month we'll have 5, but then we'll go back to 4 at a time, just because it is a lot of information and want to make sure. But if council wants to revisit that and we can have all of them at one time, kind of 4 times a year, it's fine.
So that's great. I don't know if I have anything to add to that, but so in 6 months we would see the same one come back, and obviously these ones that are done would be off. We'd take them off and move on to the new stuff. That's great. And the other question I had was about tracking motions, and there's some other system in place, I presume, that you guys use to track motions and make sure that they're not lost, because I noticed that we're not really tracking motions in this particular format, which is fine, I think, since we make 1 million motions, and that might be too cumbersome to show us every time.
Yeah, and thanks, Councillor Frisch, for that comment. Through to the rest of council, we talked about the format, and again, that can evolve. We can do that. We do track our motions, and some of these are some historical projects, and we can add motions as items come to this table. This was built on some previous work, so
there's a legislative management report at some point, or it's because it's not on this one, it would be on a different one, and maybe just a line item would be motions older than a year or something, just to remind us, are there any we need to revisit? And then it's on the management report, and we can see that actually there aren't any that are languishing. As a suggestion. Great, thank you.
Yeah, and again, going back to my previous comment, just having it in front of us, I think is great. And although I found the typing a little bit small for my poor little eyes, I have to say, just having it here has been great, and I didn't find it onerous at all to zip through those ones to sort of get a sense of what was going on. So again, kudos to staff, and we'll just keep the discussion going now that we have a process in place. And again, I'll just unanimously receive all these management reports, and we'll move into reports and updates from council, and we'll start with Councillor Cole Hamilton. If you nothing to report, okay, Councillor Frisch.
Well, I'll speak a little bit to the Junction Community Advisory Committee, because we did just have a meeting, and ongoing challenges that everyone's well aware of that are probably happening all over the city, but are happening in this neighborhood. Maybe more, maybe not, but the neighborhood has a lot going on in it. And so we're racking our brains trying to figure out all the great ways to bring community to this community or maintain community here. And I just wanted to share that sort of thought with council. And if any people on council have ideas or want to chat about it, I'm definitely open to that. We just had a new member join us who lives in the neighborhood, and she's really keen on developing some community engagement and so on. And so there might be a request from council at some point, because I don't know where the capacity for it all comes. But as volunteers, I think we'll do as much as we can. And just know that if anyone wants more of an update, that I'm willing to give that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Fritsch. Appreciate that. And Councillor Healing.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just report that on the 16th of December, I facilitated the meeting that I previously advised Council about between the leadership of the Vancouver Island Regional Library and the Local Accessibility Committee in relation to accessibility issues in the soon to be renovated library. And it turned out to be an excellent meeting. The accessibility people were really appreciative of feeling like they were being heard. And the regional library people were excellent in their engagement. And so I'd just like to acknowledge that. And once again, thank Councillor Theos, our rep on the library board, for helping to facilitate the setting up of that meeting. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Councillor Healing. And Councillor McCollum.
I've got nothing to report. Thanks.
Perfect. All right. And Councillor Morin. Nothing. And Councillor Theos. Nothing. That leaves me. All right. It has been quite a while since we met, but there's a few things that have happened way back in December. We did, and I think actually some council members came to the menorah lighting that we had at City Hall. And this was the first year where, with the rabbi's permission, I extended that invitation. And we also had, I believe, the mayor of Cumberland and the chair of our regional district at that event, as well as directors and other councillors from across the community. So it was a great event. We also had a photo op, but more importantly, the opening of the Herbaloo. And again, information is going to be coming out from in terms of looking at extending hours and stuff. But the fact that we actually have a place downtown now that is a public washroom during business hours, I think is a great start. The Chamber had a couple of events. One was their Christmas mixer, which is a great event back in December. And then more recently, just in the last week, they had the economic forecast for the Comox Valley. That was the speaker was the Honorable Perrin Beatty, who is the CEO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, who sort of talked about where we are in terms of pandemics and recoveries and those kinds of things. I also participated in some interviews at Vanier, as I have done usually a few times a year for their careers class, and was really blown away at some of these students. And lastly, I just want to really comment on the Homelessness Coalition members and folks in the Comox Valley that really reached out to those in need when we had extreme weather conditions that, unseasonably snowy, cold, etc. And I think our community really stepped up, and I just want to thank them for that. And in fact, this space right here, which was originally designed as also an emergency space, actually got utilized as that. And I was really, really proud to see that people looking to make sure that we're using all available public resources as best as possible. So just kudos all the way around to everybody involved in that. And with that, we'll go into resolutions of council. And I think I just go ahead. Oh, Councillor McCollum, did you?
Resolution of council, so I put my mic on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it went off. Yeah, so air quality has been a complex issue for us to address. At the beginning of this term, council made the decision to work on this as a region through the Airshed Advisory Council to tackle it in a coordinated manner. And then at our last council meeting, we resolved to continue to support that work. However, it's clear to me that we need to consider what other further measures are possible for us to undertake. Uncertified wood burning appliances, poor burning practices, and weather conditions all have significant impacts on our PM 2.5 particle concentrations in Courtenay. Councillor Cole Hamilton and I are proposing these resolutions, both the one I'm going to introduce and the following, in hopes of minimizing the impacts of these factors. So whereas PM 2.5 particles in wood smoke are carcinogenic and pose a health risk to all people and an acute health threat to children, older people, and persons with asthma, emphysema, and other lung issues, other lung diseases, whereas temperature inversions and other meteorological conditions can negatively impact the dispersion of PM 2.5 particles and result in significantly higher concentrations at ground level. And whereas the government of British Columbia provides current air quality assessments and forecasts for the region, for all regions, including the Comox Valley. And whereas a reduction in the use of wood burning appliances on days with low air quality is known to reduce negative health impacts, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to develop a policy to encourage no burning activities when forecasted air quality health is at greatest risk.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Councillor McCollum and Councillor Cole-Hamilton for bringing this forward. I think it's an important step as we, again, try to address especially some of those days where it can be quite significant in terms of impact on the health of our residents. So I do appreciate that. Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to speak briefly on this. I think it's an important measure because I think most people want to be breathing clean air and making sure their neighbors are able to do the same. And I think it's difficult for us as lay people to know when a poor air quality day is coming up. And it's sometimes difficult to tell when are bad days to burn, even when they're happening. And the province of BC provides that kind of information. It provides forecasts. And I think if we can let people know how they can help, then those people who enjoy a fire just for recreationally because it's beautiful to look at, and will just choose not to burn that day. Some people who heat their homes with wood may choose to be more careful about how they damp their fires and making sure their wood is extra well seasoned. But I think providing people with more information allows them to make the kind of constructive choices that will make for cleaner air in the valley. And this is a simple, clear step for allowing people the information available that they can use to make those choices. Thanks.
Thanks very much. I do appreciate that. Councillor Hillian.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. A couple of things. First of all, I know the word voluntary no burning activities is in the resolution, but wasn't actually read out. I'm assuming that it's still the intent that. Yeah. Yes. Thanks. The other question I have, it asks staff to develop a policy, and we did have a resolution perhaps a year ago that asked staff to look into bylaw measures in relation to wood smoke. I can't remember if we dealt with that when we had the report brought forward recently. Or whether that's work that is still underway. Just if we could clarify that, and if staff think that that this resolution is something that can in fact be achieved within a few months.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian. I'll pass over to Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you. Through Councillor Hillian to Council, Mr. Davidson is here. You can speak to it. The December 6th report on this did look to bylaw recommendations. And I believe that staff have been consulted and work closely to help on these resolutions. So we can certainly work on a policy. So I think we're in a good shape there.
Okay, thanks very much.
And my only comment on it is whether or not it makes sense to maybe include a setting of this to our neighboring municipalities, given the fact that we do share a single airshed. And so by showing them what we're doing, that might provide an opportunity to work together, but also some partnerships there, considering that information kind of affects the value that we're getting from the province. Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, I think that's a really great suggestion. I mean, I think the key piece of the motion is simply to have another mechanism to communicate the issues around air quality and impacts to people's health. I think there is still many people out there who are using wood as a fuel and don't truly understand the negative health impacts. And I think putting something like this forward really sends a message about the seriousness of what this type of air pollution is doing to people's health, and that we're taking it seriously. And I think coordinating that with our other local partners would really help in that. I mean, ideally, if we're looking forward a year or two from now, on a day like today where the air is inverted, the only wood stoves that are being used are ones in homes that have no other available means of keeping warm, and the rest of them are kept off. So yeah, I appreciate your suggestions.
Well, I take that as an amendment. I'm not allowed to make an amendment, so.
Yeah, can I amend my own motion?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when forecasted air quality is at greatest risk, and that the motion be shared with our neighboring municipal partners as a suggested resolution. So
Local governments. That sounds good. And that would include Comox First Nation most likely. And all right. Excellent. That's been moved and seconded. Thanks for that minute. Sorry to put you on the spot there. Are there any questions or comments regarding the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? That passes. And sorry, I'm looking at a finger over there. It looks like it's going to push a button. So I'm you're good. Excellent. But all right. Well, thanks very much. Let's now voting on the motion as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And again, thanks to Councillor McCollum and Councillor Collins for bringing that forward. And there's Councillor Paul Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce a motion on excessive wood smoke. And whereas PM 2.5 particles of wood smoke are carcinogenic and pose a health risk to all people as an acute health threat to children, older people, and persons with asthma, emphysema, and other lung diseases. Whereas the World Health Organization guidelines specify that 24-hour average exposures to PM 2.5 particles should not exceed 1.5. Oh man, I've got to get my reading glasses out. To make sure I'm reading this correctly. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, 15 UGs per cubic meter for more than 3 to 4 days per year. The levels in the city of Courtenay exceed that level 6 or more times in the last 30 days. Whereas the use of wood burning appliances is the primary source of airborne PM 2.5 particles in the city of Courtenay. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to identify consequences for measurably excessive wood smoke emissions.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Thanks very much. And would you like to speak?
Yeah, I would definitely like to speak to that. So this resolution seeks to assist in identifying sources of excessive wood smoke in the community. Some houses produce more smoke, and there may be varying reasons for this. It could be how this wood stove is operated, it could be its age or condition, or it could be that the wood being burned is not adequately seasoned. There are a few different ways of identifying excessive wood smoke. Some use opacity, how opaque or thick the smoke is, and others use the visibility of smoke from a predetermined distance to identify excessive smoke. If we can identify where this is happening, then the city can work with the householder to identify the reason, suggest steps to address it, and if those steps are not successful, then consider consequences. And in other jurisdictions, it seems that education followed by a warning is generally successful and the consequences rarely need to be applied. Again, coming back to the fact that I think people generally want to do the right thing and help their community. So this resolution instructs our staff to explore these and other possible options and to return to council with recommendations.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And what I heard, because in the motion, the therefore it be resolved does focus on the consequences, but it sounds like we're looking at remedies and then consequences. So just to be clear, but because that's exactly what I heard you say. Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. And I wonder if, as with the previous resolution, I'm safe in assuming that staff have already been consulted in relation to this particular request. That being the case, my only comment is that, you know, at a previous meeting, we basically endorsed staff continuing to work with the Airshed Roundtable. It strikes me that we're now asking our staff to do the work that perhaps should be going on there. So I just want to make sure that staff would be in liaison with the Airshed Roundtable in relation to any efforts in this regard. Similar to the mayor's amendment to the previous motion, clearly doing this makes more sense if it is applied to the entire area.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Councillor Alien. Council may recall that you referred and asked the region to start to look at their regulation of open burning and other particulate producing burning activities. Our staff, through Mr. Davidson's department, will continue to participate at that roundtable. We see it as valuable in its council's direction, and I would say that we are showing and have shown significant leadership on this issue in the Comox Valley amongst local governments, and again, referring this to the region would also be applicable.
All right.
Thanks very much.
So if what I'm hearing, would you like to have an amendment that says to share with members of the Airshed or with other local governments? Or is it implied?
I think it's implied that staff would be sharing any materials or any policy ideas or responses with the CVRD Airshed. But entirely happy to have a specific amendment to clarify that.
Okay, fair enough. And Ms. O'Connell was saying
has the wording.
Yeah. Thanks very much for that. I do appreciate it. Okay. All right. So we do have it on the floor if there's no further questions or comments. So Councillor Cohaman, only because your light's on, I thought I'd just confirm we're good. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. All right. Next, we have street lights in downtown area. Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So whereas adequate lighting is a fundamental element of crime prevention through environmental design, and whereas the alleyways in the downtown core between 3rd and 6th Streets in the downtown core would benefit from the addition of street lighting to deter criminal activity and promote public safety. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to report back to council on options to enhance lighting in the alleyways between 3rd and 6th Streets.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you. So I think this resolution largely speaks for itself, given that many businesses in this area back directly into these public alleyways and have staff leaving after dark many days. Improved lighting can provide a greater measure of safety. And further to that, improving lighting will undoubtedly increase the effectiveness of private security cameras that many businesses have already put in place. Thanks.
All right, thanks very much. And I don't see any questions or comments at this point, so I'll just go straight to the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. So whereas closed circuit television, CCTV cameras on private buildings can yield information that is of assistance to the RCMP in its investigations, and whereas there is at present no comprehensive database of where such CCTV cameras exist and what areas they cover, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to create and maintain a GIS map layer that includes CCTV camera information as provided to the City of Courtenay by the Downtown Courtenay Business Improvement Association business area, and be it further resolved that access to the CCTV GIS map be provided to the RCMP for the sole purpose of supporting investigative processes.
Thank you. I don't know why we're looking to you, Councillor McCollum, but all right, and back to you, Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. So this resolution arose from discussions where business owners spoke of the time that they and RCMP spent trying to determine which cameras might be able to provide footage for investigation. I know our CAO spoke with the RCMP detachment head, Inspector Curvers, who agreed this would be useful to officers and allow them to work more effectively. And given that RCMP time is something that we all support through our taxes, I believe this proposal will be of benefit to all taxpayers in the city. I also like to see this as a possible pilot project. If it is proven to be effective, I would like to see it introduced to and expanded to cover more of the city with this type of mapping. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Councillor Cole Hamilton. And it's probably worth noting when we've spoken with the BIA, other things that can help with this is actually getting the RCMP to help with placements of cameras, as well as ensuring that members through an annual process or when they become members of the BIA actually make sure that their cameras work and they know their passwords, et cetera, so that they can be accessed when needed. So it was a good conversation with the BIA. So thanks for that. Councillor Warren.
Great, thank you. I just had a couple questions, if it's okay to go through the mayor to ask Councillor Cole Hamilton. I'm just thinking, would this be a voluntary thing with businesses? And would this GIS mapping only be provided to the RCMP? And the reason I'm asking those questions is some people have cameras that don't work, that they think deter people. And I'm just not sure if everybody would voluntarily, provide that information, or if it was put out there publicly, if they would be concerned that somebody would find out that a camera isn't working, or just in terms of access to information about. I see the benefits of it, but I'm just wondering if there's a downside to it as well.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Martin. No, this is completely voluntary. This is a matter of the BIA providing information from their members to the city so that we can put them on this map for the convenience of investigation. And the resolution does explicitly state that this can only be used by the RCMP for the sole purpose of supporting investigative processes. So it's not something that other people will have access to. This is private information and kept strictly to
Great,
that.
thank you.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is that this the challenge right now, this does sort of happen, but it's onesie twosie where the RCMP have to go and canvas and actually find out who has cameras. Can they actually access the information on the cameras, that kind of thing? Whereas this basically is moving it into a little bit more proactive kind of situation, and creates almost a thing where it's, you can, there's like those combat auto theft cat stickers they used to have back in the 80s where, businesses could actually say, we're part of this program to help promote that security. Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 points. First of all, I want to acknowledge Councillor Cole Hamilton, who's done a tremendous amount of work in relation to downtown safety, and a significant amount of work just in preparing resolutions for this meeting tonight. But I also want to note that there was a council resolution that was passed a few years ago regarding investigating the possibility of video cameras in downtown areas such as the library to promote safety and security in our streets. And I don't believe that we ever did receive a report, but there may well have been some staff work done in relation to that could be useful in relation to this project. So I just wanted to earmark that for possible staff consideration. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Councillor Hillian. I appreciate that. Councillor Theos.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and also thank you, Councillor Cole Hamilton, for the efforts involved in creating safety downtown, and you've put forward some motions that can make a difference. And it also raises the question to me of maybe now's the time, or soon from here, that motion I put forward just at the beginning of COVID was to have staff look into the possibilities of having a community policing station downtown. And as a result of COVID, we had to cancel that particular meeting, and we weren't able to put that forward. Now, I didn't want to bring it forward after that because of the staff limitations, but I wonder, based on your camera concept, having policing of some nature in the downtown area, I wonder if you feel that could work hand in hand with some of these safety issues that you're referring to.
I mean, I think a community police station downtown is definitely something to consider. Some communities do that. It's as compared to the camera option, it's obviously there's a substantial cost involved in the building and additional staffing of the RCMP for a station like that. But that's certainly a possibility that's being discussed and can be explored if you wanted to reintroduce that motion.
Right. Thanks for that. And Councillor Frisch.
Thanks, Mayor. So I guess what comes to mind, it's not the first thing, but is there any concerns about privacy here? And I know in a world that we readily tell everyone what we had for breakfast and what we're doing at any given time on Instagram and such, it might still be uncomfortable to have closed circuit cameras recording our moves and then passing that on to the authorities. So something to think about and weigh that out with the possible benefits.
Well, and I think, maybe I'll pass it over to Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Frisch, through the mayor. The intention is to be, these are cameras on private property. They're not designed to surveil public streets, etc. We're very conscious of that, and I did do a bit of background through some of the different deliberations that have happened through council over the years, and that's a separate matter. This is to keep track of what's out there on the private, and to Councillor Cole-Hamilton's previous comments, this is some work that's already happening whereby the police, RCMP, are reaching out to private property owners and responding to their individual requests for us to help have some way to sort of streamline that process, and hopefully that would assist.
Yeah, and I think, again, I think I might have mentioned this before. I mean, it doesn't obligate the owners of these cameras, these private businesses, to provide information. But I think one of the things that it does is it, again, tries to expedite that canvassing that has to happen by the RCMP, which from time to time might have to be updated. But it also helps instill in those people who have their private cameras and their private businesses to make sure that they're functioning properly. So it really just, it's being a little bit more proactive. And Councillor Cole-Hamilton?
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to say something along those lines. I think it encourages, it's an entirely voluntary program. It doesn't say that people have to have cameras. And if they do have cameras, they don't have to put forward the information, so it gets put on the GIS map. But what it does do is take an existing mapping system that we have, and with minimal effort and expense, puts on it a usable, interactive, and constantly updatable map for the RCMP to locate the cameras that would be useful for a particular investigation. And when I hear business owners talking about their time being wasted and RCMP spending hours trying to figure out which cameras are pointing where and who they should talk to, it seems like there's a considerable waste of resources that could be going to far better places. So I see this as an inexpensive way of leveraging resources, both the cities and those of individual businesses that already exist, and allowing the RCMP just to do a more effective job of keeping the community safe.
Yeah, and I think, when we start talking about, public cameras that owned by the city, et cetera, those it's a much bigger conversation, much more problematic in terms of recording people and stuff, whereas this is really, just collating the information that already exists. Councilor.
And just on that note, I actually took a look back to find out the meeting where that resolution came up, and it was about the placement of cameras on city-owned facilities, surveilling city-owned facilities. So it was not a matter of cameras surveilling the public street. It'd be much like if we had, sort of cameras on this building or on City Hall surveilling entrances and things like that for security. So it would not be public property that was the subject of that resolution or this resolution.
All right. Excellent. I think that we've had a pretty good discussion around this item. If there's no further questions or comments, we'll vote on it. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. All right. I believe 8.5, Councillor Cole-Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So this resolution was prepared up against the submission deadline, and I would like actually to withdraw it so I can take a little bit more time to craft a little bit more carefully, and I'll bring an updated version to our next meeting.
All right. Thanks very much. We don't have any unfinished business, but or notice of motion at this point, but we do have some new business. Under new business, which is not in your agendas, I don't believe, is the just for a January 31st meeting that we're going to start that at 2:30 p.m. So if somebody could make a motion to that effect. Excellent. We're all good. I see nods. All right. Councillor Hillian.
Mr. Mayor, is that the regular council meeting that will start at 2:30?
Yeah.
Okay, just to clarify things.
Yeah. Well, when we say regular, yeah, Ms. O'Connell.
Sorry, yeah, through your worship to council. It's to facilitate or to accommodate a closed portion. So the goal is to keep the start time of the open meeting still at 4 o'clock. But the early resolution is because council has to have an open meeting first, then resolve into closed. And under the current procedure bylaw, the only way to change that time is to either call a special like we did today, or to have a motion of council passed to amend that start time. So for clarification, the open start time will remain consistent at 4 p.m. We'll just have a closed meeting that precludes that meeting itself.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that clarification. And so it's been moved and seconded to start our January 31st meeting at 2:30 p.m. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And now we're going into bylaws for third reading. All right, Councilor McCallum.
I'll move that zoning amendment bylaw number 3030 2021 at 3040 Kilpatrick Avenue, a bylaw which proposes an amendment to zoning bylaw number 2005-2007 by rezoning the property legally described as Lot 1, Section 67, Comox District, Plan EPP 79267, except airspace plan EPP 81977 from comprehensive development 26 to a new site-specific comprehensive development 26A zone to accommodate a 41 multi-residential development.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. We did have a public hearing in relation to this development, and we received comprehensive submissions at that time, which are contained in the report presented to council earlier this evening. I'm going to vote against this bylaw amendment based on primarily on the submissions from the business owners in the area who have been running their businesses and started their businesses. They're based on the existing zoning and believe that their interests are significantly impacted by this project. It's a difficult decision for me to take because we certainly want to encourage additional housing, but while the developer has gone some distance to build in some suites that would be at affordable rates, the area is very congested. And I think that the original plan makes more sense to me, and it certainly makes more sense to the businesses impacted. So based on that, I'm going to vote against this amendment. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian and Councillor McCullum.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not a straightforward rezoning application. There's a lot of factors in play, and I've given it a great deal of thought after all the feedback that we received at the public hearing as well. But what we're really considering isn't, I mean, the factor that we need to consider is the impacts that were raised as concerns in the public hearing versus what the existing zoning allows. And one of the primary concerns was exposure to the street frontage from those businesses tucked in a basically what's functionally a panhandle lot. And even if the applicant were to construct a one-story commercial building, it would effectively have the same impact. There is, we received pictures from those submissions that basically shows that even the construction trailers are blocking the view of the building behind. So even if you put in a one-story building with a roof, you would block the view of any person driving down that road to see what's in behind the building. And I think the proposed solution from these businesses of providing some good street signage is probably going to serve them better than anything. It's a suboptimal situation for them, but I don't believe that the construction of a one-story versus a four-story building is really going to protect that exposure that they're sad to lose. But I mean, it's already in the zoning that's going to happen. So the other concern that we heard from multiple submissions was concerns around parking. And should a commercial building go in, there's going to be staff associated with that business. I mean, we heard that there was a potential for a drive-through type of food business. Well, that could be as many as a dozen employees and however many customers visit that business on a day-by-day basis. So again, the change of use, I'm not convinced that it's going to be significantly worse or different than what the current zoning is. And then another concern that was raised was security and crime. And I couldn't really make the connection on how building a condominium would increase existing crime in an area. I would assume that something like a drive-through restaurant would maybe have a bigger negative impact on the neighborhood than providing new residences. So again, I'm supportive of the application for that reason. And I think I'll leave it there and let others weigh in.
All right, thanks very much. Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. This was also a really, really hard decision for me. These are never perfect choices. It's a matter of balancing the interests of the community, often against concerns in the immediate area surrounding this. A lot of the concerns that came from the general community were around parking, and those seem to be problems that already exist based upon buildings 1 and 2. And apparently there are 50% of the stalls in building 2 are still available for rent if people wish to rent them. So it appears to be perhaps people having vehicles and choosing not to rent stalls. And that's a problem that exists. And I don't think that turning down this development would necessarily solve the problems that exist. The proposed development does have sufficient parking for the units that are there. So I think on the parking front, I see this is a problem which can be resolved by simply people registering their vehicles, given there is already excess available parking at this point. There were concerns mentioned about a lack of green space. It's a small play area on site, and it's also within 5 minutes walk of Millard Nature Park and a 15-minute walk of Billmore Park and the Riverway. And mobility, it's an excellent site in terms of transit. As we just discussed, the transit exchanges a new one is to be built at the Anfield Center, and it's currently on one of the frequent bus routes. So this is an excellent place to live if you are wishing to have easy access for the rest of the community. I think the real sore spot here, and I understand this, having run storefront businesses before, is from two particular storefront businesses, the ones you can that face towards Kilpatrick. They are a significant distance from Kilpatrick, and they are one full floor level below Kilpatrick. And I know from having gone to one of them to get my iPhone screen replaced that it was only the sign at the end of the driveway on Kilpatrick to let me know where it was. And I know the developer has offered to provide a location for a sign exactly there for these current businesses. They are extremely difficult to see from the road. It's if driving, there's only a fraction of a second where if you look just at the right time where it's possible to see these businesses. And I can see that these businesses would prefer not to have a building in front of them, but even the building that was going to be planned, the commercial building of the drive-through restaurant, would have completely obscured them from the road. So it's not a matter of no buildings versus this one. It's a matter of one or the other development options, and either of them, given that they are below road level, would have served to obscure them from the road. One of the other things that came up was the lack of, sorry, I'm just trying to get through my notes, concerns about traffic and noise. And I think in both of those cases, I think the study showed that a 24-hour, up to 24-hour, because it's zoned for up to 24-hour drive-through restaurant would produce far more traffic than an apartment building, and likely more noise and likely more light than an apartment building. So those are some of the concerns that were raised, and they need to be counterbalanced with the fact that this will provide 41 units of necessary housing, including 5 units of affordable housing, which will be 30% below market rates. That's not inconsequential, and for those 5 households who will now have a front door and a roof over heads they can afford, that's something beyond measure. It won't solve all of our problems, but it will mean that 5 more families have a place to live, a place that they can afford. And it's these sorts of benefits to the community, which in the grand scheme of things, when looking at community, the overall benefits of the community, which caused me, it's a hard decision. It's one of the hardest I think we've had to make in terms of balancing the benefits of the overall community to impacts to the immediate environment. But that makes me think that this is something that is in the overall interest of the community. And I know that one of the concerns, particularly of the dog grooming business there, the Gilberts, was that I found this, I thought this was incredibly constructive of them, that at the public hearing, they talked not only of their desire not to see the buildings built, but if they were, they talked about ways in which impact could be minimized. And one of those was to keep the access road unblocked. And I actually asked our staff if it was possible to have something put into this development proposal to ensure that. They said as it's an easement between 2 private entities, that's something that would need to be worked out between the businesses there and the developer. But I note that in public hearings or the public meetings, the developer talked about minimal need to put anything in one of those lanes, and that would be for short periods of duration and would include flagging. And single lane access, while not optimal for short periods of time, is probably a manageable alternative for this for the people at 3030 Kilpatrick. So yeah, as I said, a very, very difficult decision, but I think the overall balance of interest for the community favor this development moving ahead. So for those reasons, I'll be voting in favor.
Thanks, Councillor Cole Hamilton. I don't see any further, or Councillor Theos.
Yeah, I'll just be quite brief. The fact that having more housing in the community is definitely beneficial, and you know, the location does have easy access, as was mentioned, to many of the amenities in the community. But from my perspective, I really feel that the small businesses in that area, they know their potential of succeeding and not succeeding, and I'm very hesitant to make a decision that I feel will put them in a position where they may not succeed after dealing with 2 years of challenging times with COVID and other business challenges. I know that there are great benefits to the tax base by moving forward to the housing market, to even our infrastructure with amenity funds that are going to be provided. But I personally just cannot get over that one element of the small businesses in that area that are hopefully not going to be casualties of projects such as this. So I'll vote against it.
Councillor Morin.
Yeah, this is probably the proposal that I've had the most struggle with, that we've been presented with. I agree with a lot of the comments here. I know we did receive, I went through the comments that were written and also verbal at the public hearing, and you know, there was a mix of support and non-support. Obviously, the folks not supported are the people that actually live there and work there. Many of the people who supported it were people moving here from afar, which is their right, obviously. But I think there is an optics issue here in terms of there's a perception by the public often that we're just, you know, opening up for everyone to come in and take all the housing. And in fact, most of the comments that came in were people who expressed that they were moving from Vancouver, wherever, to come over here. And it's, so there is a perception, I'm not saying that it's reality, that people who are here struggling now to find housing are not able to find it. And also, the other piece of this is that there is a commercial residential component in this neighborhood already. And having lived in a commercial residential neighborhood, I know that it's, I guess I can understand the concern about their little area just being dwarfed by, you know, more buildings being packed into this area, and not really being a community anymore. And I see the point that the existing zoning would bring challenges. However, the people who have spoken, I don't believe there was anybody currently living there or working there who spoke in favor of it, is my recollection. So I am listening to the people who are in the area, talking about the many concerns that they've had over years with this, you know, in terms of the second building being built and all the challenges, the construction, you know, there's going to be construction, people needing parking, noise impact. These are small businesses. These are not, these are businesses that are already really struggling because of COVID, have already taken a hit. And I'm struggling with this one because I see that the impact is huge to the folks living and working down there. And there was the other piece that I think we did have the question answered in terms of the accessibility, walking through, that it would cut off some access for pedestrians as well. So that's another whole piece, is the connectivity for pedestrians. I think that was answered, but perhaps staff could clarify that piece. There were conversations about people getting through. Sorry, I can't find it, but I think people know what I'm referring to. Pedestrians getting through that area if the building is put there. Well, maybe I need to find it.
Hang on, Mr. Garbutt?
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Councillor Morin, through the mayor. So
the pedestrian route off of Cliff Avenue.
Yeah, so there is a pedestrian route through. It is a strata, and there are access between stratas. So there is a pedestrian route through there. We would work through our accessibility guidelines in the development permit for the subsequent building to address those issues, both accessibility from a mobility challenged people, and as well that pedestrian movement. And ultimately, the stratas themselves work together on that, and that's an alignment.
Anyway, I'll leave it at that for the moment. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Moore. Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Obviously a difficult decision, as everyone's outlined. And for me, I think it's, balancing out the needs of this existing community with the needs of the greater community. And when I look at a potential development, I always ask myself, is this improving the community that exists right now? Or is it causing significant issues? And I think for me, this one narrowly passes. I think we really want to be encouraging developers to think holistically in the community they're in, and not just thinking about their own piece of land and not contemplating how that affects those that are right next to it. So, but in the big picture, I think it conforms with the rules that we have in place right now. And I think looking forward to our potential new OCP that also supports that vision of bringing more people and basically more affordable living than single family homes to an area that has good access, or relatively good access, to transit. Ideally, of course, I'd like to see more infill development closer to our city center, but for me, I'm going to vote likely in favor of this one. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Frisch. I don't see any further lights at this point in time. And I do know this is something that certainly weighs on all of council quite a bit. My comments, again, if we look at how this addresses our OCP vision, the RGS for regional growth strategy, does it really answer those questions? And I think it does. Does it do it at a cost? I think that that's been commented on many times already. And for anybody who's ever driven down the highway on the way out of town and looks at all the commercial places that are right on the exchange there of the parkway, there are trees that when I first moved here 20 years ago were much smaller, and you could see all of those businesses quite easily as you were driving down towards Royston. Whereas now those trees are much more mature and you can't see them. And so over time, that viewability has been eroded for the businesses that are facing the highway side of it. So those kinds of things can happen if we look at other places in town, like Tin Town, for example, which is another place where there's businesses and residences. Unless you drive down each one of those streets, you won't see them from Cousins Road. And some of them are even hard to see once you're in there. And so there are these challenges that are kind of built in. And I think unfortunately with this one here, those challenges were built into the way that these properties are designed. And so it is problematic, but at the end of the day, I know I'll be voting in favor of this because of the fact that it does address our OCP, not just our current one, but the one that we're working towards, and the fact that the developer was willing to work towards trying to find some ways to get more affordable housing in our community. And to the points that were made before, unfortunately, whatever building goes in there is going to impact that view. And again, it's a really challenging thing, and unfortunately, we do have to move forward. So with that, I don't see any further lights, and I'll call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we have 3 opposed: Councillor Hillian, Councillor Moore, and Councillor Theos. And that passes.
I mean, it's obvious to us.
I should say that when something passes, you're correct. Thanks, Councillor Fish. Sorry, it's not often that we have a lengthy conversation like that. Councillor Fish.
If you're ready, Mayor, I'll move that zoning amendment bylaw number 3040/2021 for 1236 Malahat Drive, which is to allow a carriage house on that lot, pass third reading.
Okay. And does anybody want to have any questions or comments regarding this? Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. If I remember correctly, we had some issues related to height, and there was a submission from one member of the public and neighbor in that regard. Although it was interesting that, again, we had a mixture of views on this, but I'm just wondering if staff could comment on the height issue and whether there are any concerns related to
that. I'm getting there.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Councillor Hillian. And I'll start, and I'll ask Mr. Seta to carry in if I need the assistance. So through the mayor to council. So the development zoning details include amending the height to recognize the height of the building. There were historically some issues that were raised with respect to the structure. However, the zoning application will rectify that issue. At a staff level, there's a recommendation that supported this as presented. Issues, I think, related to views and were expressed by the neighbors, and staff continue to be of the opinion that it is appropriate and consistent with our recommendations.
Thanks very much. Pleased to support it on that basis.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hillian and staff. I see no further questions or comments at this point, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And for final adoption, Councillor Frisch.
Yeah, I'll move that zoning amendment bylaw number 3040/2021, again for 1236 Malahat Drive to allow a carriage house be finally adopted.
Excellent. And we just spoke about this one. So I think we've answered any questions that we might have. So all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Councillor Hillian.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move final adoption of City of Courtenay fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3055/2021-2022 water user fees.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments regarding the City of Courtenay fees and charges for water user fees? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Councillor Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, so I'm going to move that City of Courtenay fees and charges bylaw number 3056/2021 receive final adoption.
Excellent. And any questions or comments regarding this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And Councillor Frisch.
Thanks. I'll move that the Pardon me, 2.3. 4, I'll move that the City of Courtenay Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 3057, 2021 to amend the solid waste collection user fees be finally adopted.
All right, and again, any questions or comments regarding this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously with only one thing left. All those in favor?